On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt and Nick are getting back to some meaty Star Wars lore discussions thanks to the arrival of Andor's first 3 episodes. The Dude Bros will review their premiere episodes, break down their mysteries, and reveal all of the eggs you may have missed. If that's not enough Andor, they'll also take a deep dive into the Kenari flashbacks to try and speculate what actually went down on Cassian's home planet. Don't worry, they'll also fill you in on what may happen in Episode 4, so we've got all things Andor covered. But that's not all, they'll also riff on some James Earl Jones news and a report about Star Wars video game releases. Of course, the show will end with the Question of the Week responses and the latest round of Top 5 Star Wars Fan Artist Features. Punch it, Chewie!
Hey now everybody, let me take off the screen protector! By the power of Grayskull, I am not He-Man. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Star Wars Time Show. We're back, we're live, and we've got current Star Wars to talk about. So that's why we currently have a poster of Don't Worry Darling on the live stream cast. Hey, what do you expect from the Star Wars Time Show, right? We make you wait a whole week to hear our review and breakdown of a week-old Star Wars property, and we're not even going to start with the old Star Wars property. We're starting with some pop culture talk. Because we, unlike other Star Wars podcasts, are a refined bunch of gentle geeks that spread our beings across all of the other pop culture items that other geeks and nerds may want to be consuming at this point in time. But don't worry, we've got a large Andor segment planned. Okay, we got episode 1, 2, and 3. We're going to review them. We're going to break them down so you know what you need to know. And then we're going to point out the few Easter eggs that Tony graced us with. As you all found out, this show is not like other Star Wars TV, which we've been trying to tell you vis-a-vis Lord Gilroy, which also means for me, it makes my Easter egg breakdowns very easy because he doesn't fuck around with that shit, you know? So thank you, Lord Tony. We speak your name. And yes, we will get there. We'll not spend too much time on the pop culture talk, but you know, there's some relevant things we want to get to that we know other Star Wars fans are probably thinking about. And before we get in that, though, I would like to address SWTS Nation, okay? Got some important announcements here, life-changing announcements. We see you fans who have reached out and have expressed your disgust and anger with the cadence of the Star Wars Time Show during a live Star Wars TV show run on Disney+. We see you. Like the Na'vi, okay? But we're probably not going to change anything, all right? So what I'm talking about is, Nick and I, we've talked about this. I've lamented this probably before on the cast. Whenever Disney moved their flagship shows to a Wednesday release, I knew it was going to butt-fuck us because our show has been, for the most part, Nick, almost 3 years now, been a Tuesday afternoon show.
Yep, we record on Tuesday, we release on Wednesday for those of you who are not live.
Our lives and our routines have been structured around SWTS birthing each week on a Tuesday afternoon. With that being said, I fully understand that it is not ideal for Star Wars shows when they release on a Wednesday, because like that work more or less is saying here, he had to wait a whole damn week to hear the valuable, insightful, and sometimes enlightened thoughts of the Star Wars Time Show host about said old episodes. So we get it. It sucks. But we're not going to change. The only thing I can think here is if I get a bug up my ass on a Wednesday and I'm really feeling the need to get out there and kind of barf up my thoughts early. I might do like a one-man stream to podcast special. But for the most part, if you are dying to hear what the Star Wars Time Show hosts have to say, think, express, yell about, whatever, about a Star Wars show that is about a week old, I suggest tuning into our YouTube channel on Wednesdays, because then you'll at least get a little splash, okay? That's when I spew all my little short content out or thought videos. But you could also tune into the recorded version of the live stream. I would think, Nick, you usually can see it right after we're done recording, right? The live stream, you can find it on the channel. So
that is right.
Yeah, those of you that are worried about this, and I get it. I'm not like, listen, I'm appreciative to that one fan on Twitter saying, "Hey man, please don't tell me you're going to be doing your recaps the day of new episodes." I'm like, bro, I hate to tell you, but that's the type of shit show we run here at the SWTS. So you're just going to have to get with it and understand how we roll. But I told him, like, listen, come Tuesday evening, you should be able to find the recorded live stream on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show, which is the exact same show that goes out on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. So thank you to those live streamers that are telling us that we are not assholes right now. So work more or less SW Black Series clips. But trust me, Nick knows I've been worried about this. And unlike Nick, I have not been able to get rid of my unhealthy obsessions with just, we got to do what one person wants us to do. That'll make us. That'll be our break. So we heard you. We understand you. But we're not going to change. It's just life has been sculpted. I mean, I literally build my real life work schedule around this fucking show. So we're at least locked in until December.
Yeah, I mean, Matt has classes to teach on Wednesdays.
Exactly.
And, it's too hard to move a show. And also, if we did it on a Wednesday, we would have to do it probably
at night.
Watch the show, watch the episodes as soon as they drop. Then Matt has to worry about, what time his classes are, how long the show goes, what time we record and everything like that. It's a lot to deal with. And I mean, same for Thursdays and Fridays too. And the thing is if I had confidence, or if we had confidence that if we did this show on a Thursday, then we would, our concurrent live viewers would go from 12 to 150, then maybe we would do it. But I don't think that that's going to be the case. Right. So
you're right, and that's why Nick is here. He has realistic expectations. He gets it. I don't. I literally still feel just like gamers do sometimes. One more turn, right? One more turn. For me, it's one more post. One more post is going to do it. That's why last Wednesday, my sick ass was up at 4 a.m. to watch the 3 episodes. And then I produced double videos per episode, so 6. And then I did a bonus video because I was obsessed with Kenari, which I'm sure most of you were. And we will have a specific segment today to explore the mysteries of Kenari. So there it is. Thanks to the longtime fans in here for your support. The words do help. So at least our super fans are okay with the cadence, Nick. I think that means we can continue. So thank you.
Yeah. And realistically, this show's only going to be on the air for another 4 weeks. So, you got 4 weeks of shows we're a little late.
We got 9 weeks, I believe.
What is it, 8 episodes?
Andor's 12 man. Episodes? Yeah, so we got 9 weeks to go, buddy.
Oh, gosh. 12 episodes?
You're with me for 3 more months, pal! You're with me for 3 more months.
I'm going to fall asleep for 9 weeks watching this shit.
Hey, he told you it was going to be a slow burn, but hopefully, by episode 3, when they were ringing those bells, Nick perked up and his heart was pumping a little bit for Cassian and Luthen and Bix and Marva and all the friends we met in Andor. But, before we get there, let's keep them waiting a little bit more, since our fans do like to wait. But in all seriousness, though, if you are someone that needs to hear our thoughts early or before the new episode comes out, my best advice right now is to grab the YouTube feed at some point on a Tuesday night, sub to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show, and make sure you're looking at our podcast playlist, because I think that's where Nick says he finds it show up
that is
sometimes.
correct.
All right, there you go.
That is correct.
Okay, so please give us a few minutes to geek out on some pop culture, and then I assure you we will go balls deep into Andor S1, E1, E2, E3, and then a Kenari special. All right, so if you are in the live stream, we'd love for you to join. If you're not, every Tuesday, 2:30 on the YouTube. I've got an image of two good-looking humans right now, and that is Harry Styles and Flo Pugh, the stars of last week's big premiere, Don't Worry, Darling. And even if you haven't heard the movie, you might have heard a lot of the controversy around the movie. In fact, Don't Worry, Darling is probably more famous for its controversy now than its actual contents. Yeah. But I did go and check it out. All right. I like Harry. I like Flo. I used to like Olivia Wilde. I don't know. I'm not really feeling her anymore. Something's happened in her older age. Who really knows what happened between her and Ted Lasso? But it seems odd for a mom to leave her kids for a damn near 15-year younger male, but hey, whatever. We don't know what the fuck was going on. Ted Lasso could be a cocksucker in real life. We don't know, okay? But, Joe Coughlin, that is my cuz. What the hell's he doing in here? That guy's a warrior, by the way. You watch out for that Purple J in the live stream. He'll fucking, like, ninjutsu your ass or jujitsu your ass. He's a little guy like me, but actually did something physically with it and like went to college for wrestling and all that fun stuff. So he's actually nice. He's actually talented as a short man. But anyways, back to Don't Worry, Darling. So Nick, you're familiar with the controversy, right? Like Florence Pugh refused to promote it because she accused Olivia and Harry of essentially stalling the production because of their love affair, and you know, it was Chris Pine spitting on people or not, all this weird shit. So whatever. The movie came out last week. I would call it kind of it's a thriller, a mystery thriller, set in the 50s. There is a bit of a twist. I'm sure you could probably figure it out if you've seen some of the trailers. But, you know, with everything about the odd production and the boycotting of the promotion and really the poor critical response to the film, I will say that I found it to be enjoyable. All right, Nick, it's. I know you and Taylor were considering going. If you have not gone yet, I would still say, you know what, go check it out. It's not a bad 2 hours at the movies. What it did lack is the tension that I envisioned Olivia was going for. I never really felt tense when the subject matter calls for tension almost throughout. So you lose some of that. It is a little there it gets plot holey. Things are explored and never finished, but ultimately by the end you kind of get the gist of the movie. The twist I wouldn't say is a huge surprise, but it's still like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. And you get some great performances from Flo. Chris Pine is good. I know Harry kind of got shit on, but you know, for a good looking superstar singer, he did okay. Women out there, if any women still listen to this show, I would imagine the sex scenes in this movie are what you want to see in a sex scene. They are very sensual, lots of heavy petting and kissing. And, you know, again, it's directed by a woman, and she was kind of going for that. So those are pretty hot as well. Like Florence Pugh, I never quite had an attraction to her, Nick, but after seeing this, I was like, God damn, there is something about her, you know. She's a short, stocky girl. She's one of my type of humans, you know, little, stocky, but quite sexy. So, Don't Worry, Darling. I would say the critic reviews are a little harsh. To me, it's more like a 65, 70. Could push up to a 75 if you wanted to, but there's worse shit out there to watch. You definitely there's I've actually never seen Stepford Wives from start to finish, but there are elements in this movie that I've read about. So it's interesting, but it's nothing that, like I said, you're going to be on the edge of your seat, and when you get the twist, you just go, holy shit, something like that. But not too bad. So Nick, I'd say if you still haven't seen it, it's worth taking the lady out for a date, if anything else.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to go see it sometime either this week or this weekend. So It's on the to-do list for sure.
Yeah, Tone's in here. He's getting himself all chubbed up over Bix. Don't worry, we'll talk about Bix, who I think is already one of the best female Star Wars characters to date, just in 3 episodes of content. But we'll get there. Don't worry. We're now moving on to the Rings of Power, in particular S1E5, the most recent episode that came out. And as we're not going to spend a ton of time on this because I want to get to the Andor stuff too, just like I know you all want to get to the Andor shit. I get it. All right, we feel you. Okay, but I just told Nick, I'm like, dude, after I finally watched the Rings of Power with clarity in my brain, okay, not too many beers, that type of stuff. And at the end of episode 5, to myself, I was like, holy shit, that was the best episode to date in this first season of Rings of Power. And I explained to Nick the reason I felt that way is because, to me, as I've been saying for the past few weeks, it's been a lot of build up. Very Andor-like. Maybe even slower than Andor. Andor's not as rich in terms of the history you're learning that you get in Rings of Power, but kind of the same rollout. Very slow, setting up all the pieces. But it felt like finally, Nick, in episode 5, that all the pieces are on the board and now they are being moved into position to ultimately, hopefully over the final 3 episodes, bring us to our major moment of episode 1, which could be a conflict, and then kind of set us up with a cliffhanger and a path forward moving into season 2. So I definitely found this to be the best episode. Galadriel and Halbrand, they're on their way. They've worked through their shit. We checked back in with the Harfoots, learned a bit more about the mystery man. Your boy, the pretty boy who we're thinking is Anatar, made his first appearance. We learned Arda is not Sauron. He's some elf orc leader that whatever. But I enjoyed it. So how about you?
I mean, this is my favorite show on TV right now. It's just like you said, the difference between this and Andor for me is that there's so much history that's being revealed. Yeah. And in my opinion, given what they had to work with and giving like the massive task of creating a Tolkien show without any like what I would say like clear, hard direction like they had with Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, and with The Hobbit, like they're doing a pretty fantastic job of like paying homage to the history as it's written by Tolkien and adding context in places that they need to. So I think that they're doing a fantastic job with that. I think that some of even like the little drops that you got, like if for people who know like deep cut lore about Tolkien stuff, like the image depicting the battle between Glorfindel and the Balrog at the end, or towards the end of the first stage at the fall of the city of Gondolin was really cool. They used that as like a segue to explain how the mineral mithril was created, which obviously that's not canon, but the fight between Glorfindel and the Balrog is. It's just, I think they're doing a great job with what they have. I think a lot of the criticisms of that show is like, well, you can tell that Tolkien didn't write it. It's like, well, yeah, no shit. Tolkien's been dead for a long time. And so has
he didn't even write Silmarillion, really. His son,
grandson wrote that.
I think Chris wrote it, I believe.
Yeah, Christopher Tolkien wrote that. So like, you're not going to get like, it's just impossible to write how the Tolkiens wrote. Like, it's just not going to happen.
And it's, dude, I mean, I still, anyone that's watching this show and you want deeper insights, you have to read the Silmarillion, but it is not a book. It is it's
like an encyclopedia.
Exactly. That poses as a book. I mean, the stories, some of them span thousands of years and multiple generations and multiple different names that all sound the same. So I get it. I've come around to, hey, they've condensed everything. We talked about last week, Farazan. I mean, he shouldn't be here. The fucking Elendil shouldn't be here, and Isildur shouldn't be here. But who cares? They've jammed it all together. It's working towards ultimately what happens thousands years from now in the actual novels and dependencies and so on and so forth. But I don't know. I finally felt like this episode finally got us going. Like here we go. Now we know where we're headed. You know, there's a big thing going on with the elves and the dwarves, and if they're going to have this peaceful transfer of Mithril, because Gil-galad feels like Mithril's the only thing that's going to keep the elves
Light of the
alive and allow them to stay on Middle Earth without having to cross back over to the Grey Havens and all that fun stuff. So, Nick, is the young Durin? Is that the one we see as a skeleton in Fellowship of the Rings, or is that multiple Durins from Durin the Four?
I think that is multiple Durins from Durin the Fourth,
because what dwarves? Yeah. Or dwarves, like
they
3 to
like
500. Okay, yeah.
50.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, like 350.
Yeah, okay.
Or so.
So yeah, that's multiple Durins down. But apparently, they're even worse than the Targaryens. These dwarves, they're just like, okay, you're Durin 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It doesn't fucking matter. You're just Durin.
It's
pal.
like they just keep. It's like you're Durin, you're Hurin, you're Hurin 2, you're Durin 2, you're Hurin. It's like, okay, got it. I got it. That's the only two names that you guys could use.
The one last thing about this one, we'll move on to Andor. You had to love, and it kind of plays back to the relationship between Gimli and Legolas. But you had to love Durin fucking with Elrond with that table. He's like, hey, dude. Yeah. He's like, man, that's really important. Or how dare you fucking take that shit? And they're like, we'll use it in burial. Yeah, they're like, okay, you can have it back. And then then we find out towards the end, he's like, yeah, I was just fucking around with you guys. My
wife wanted a new table. Yeah. So it was great.
I love the dwarves. They have to be my favorite race on Middle Earth because they really, they don't give a fuck. Like, you know, the elves are clearly, they're the best. The men are clearly the worst. They're the ones that are always susceptible to failure, but they usually end up being the heroes, which is odd.
Yeah.
But the dwarves, they kind of always just do whatever the fuck they want. You know what I mean? Like, they don't give a shit. So, yeah, I do appreciate
They're the only race that's not created by Iluvatar.
Yeah, because Ale, which I believe you heard his name was spoken, he was the god of smithing, and honestly, Sauron is like a disciple of Ale, and that's why he can forge the rings, and that's why he's good at making shit. So there's your Lord of the Rings and Rings of Power lore for this week. All right, man, let's do it. They've come here to hear our Andor thoughts. I technically have not really reviewed it yet. We usually save that for our breakdowns. What I have done is kind of highlighted some of the Easter eggs and top moments, or I call them key moments this time. Probably a poor choice of words, not buzzworthy or clickbaity enough. Failures on the content releases, but at least my soul felt cleansed. I felt like I purged the demons of watching the first 3 episodes of Andor and covering them. So that if you're new here, this is kind of how we do it. We discuss the episode, kind of give our general review, and then we will take a deep dive into its meanings, its Easter eggs, its Star Wars references, foreshadowing moments, so on and so forth. So, Nick, I think because it was a 3-episode drop, we should approach the review as a whole, but then we'll go per episode with the breakdown aspects. So, I guess I'll just, why not? I keep vomiting up words. I might as well keep going here. So Andor episode 1 through 3, my review, quick review, if you will. I think it gave us everything Tony told us it was going to give us. He even told us it was going to be slow, and it is slow. Those first 2 episodes needed the 3rd episode, I think, for a lot of people. Their decision to do the delay in 3-episode release was wise, because I think if you ended on that just out of nowhere rock ballad at the end of episode 2 where Cassian's just trudging along, and literally it wasn't that weird. I think Tones brought that up, but literally at the end of episode 2, as they're getting ready to hit credits, Cassian's walking through that junkyard, and out of nowhere it's just like it's like, where the fuck did this come from? But hey, whatever. It was, I guess if you rolled right into episode 3, it kind of kept that heart pounding tension that they're looking for. But
I think that I agree with you. If you would have ended it and then had a full week wait for episode 3, people would have been
crazy,
upset.
Absolutely going crazy, dude. I mean, imagine if they just did episode 1. It literally just it ends on his flashback, and really nothing had happened at that point.
Nothing happens. So They definitely needed, almost 2 hours of content to get it started. Like you basically needed a movie to kind of get the whole series started.
If we remember what Diego said himself, he's like, listen, you're going to get this 110 minutes and it's kind of its own thing. And he was exactly right. And I didn't mind it. Like I liked learning about, the Kenari stuff and kind of setting up the stakes, introducing all the characters. I do think the time was well spent. It's just, if you're used to Star Wars, you're not used to, sadly, a lot of character and world building because you're just expected to know who's who, what's going on. But with Andor, especially episode 1 and 2, I think Tony and whoever, I forget the director's name, but he did all 3.
Toby Haynes.
Yeah, Toby Haynes. I think they did a really good job of setting up this universe, setting up Cassian, providing the stakes, showing us, why he was on Morlana 1. The flashbacks were great. They provide. I loved how they would parallel kind of the shit he was getting into in the present, especially during the 3rd episode, where literally the end. It was probably my favorite cinematography and editing, where they showed Casa being taken from Kenari as Cassian's more or less being taken from Ferrix by Luthen. And it's like... It
was the 2 life-changing
exactly.
events.
And like you even get like those flash brights or light brights, kind of signaling like, hey, this is a major change for this character. So, but by the time you get to episode 3, at least for me, as soon as 3 started, from start to finish, I felt tense. It was the feeling I was kind of looking for in Don't Worry, Darling. I did get it in Andor episode 3, where literally, because what's happening, like he's been caught. Captain Douche from the Prelox Morlana Corpo, whatever, he's got this bug up his ass. They're coming to look for him. You can see how he's getting his friends in trouble by having them lie for him and cover for him. And it all builds up to that gunfight, and that still, in my opinion, Nick, and we talked about before because it was in that special 10-minute preview, that scene between Luthen and Cassian, even seeing it for the second time, is, in my opinion, some of the best written, purely spoken dialogue Star Wars I've ever seen. Because
it was fantastic. It was fantastic.
You understand from both of these men how freaking important the idea of a rebellion is. And not so much from Cassian yet. He's rebelling, but on his own, where Luthen is doing it on a galaxy-size scale. And you can see Luthen knows, like, this is my guy. This guy's going to help turn the fucking tide. I need to get him, and I need to convince him. And I love the exchange they have. I think it's fantastic. And it has cemented Luthen as a pretty rad character, in my opinion. I like this guy. I want to learn more about him and his motivations. So, Tony, what can I say? I mean, he, in my opinion, so far has paid off on the mountain of hype that he laid out. We got a lot of speaking parts that weren't just hello. I mean, that random dude on the shuttle, that character actor talking to Luthen. I mean, that's world building. That's character building. If you listen to what he was saying while throwaway, he's talking about what it's like to be a businessman under the Empire, and the deals you have to make, and the places you have to go, and the people you have to kind of schmooze. So I think episode 1 through 3, because it was a 1 through 3 drop, nailed what Gilroy and his team were looking for in the early runs of Andor, and they really did kind of prop up the character and the series to be quite a banger moving on into the final 9 episodes. So I was a fan. I mean, I think the ratings it's getting are deserved.
Yeah, I was a fan. I do wish that they wouldn't have shown basically the climax of all 3 episodes prior to when the show came out.
True.
I wish I would have seen that for the first time in the episode, because I got there and it was an enjoyable scene, but like when it first started, I was like, I almost just want to fast forward because I've already seen it.
Yeah,
I
get that. It removed any of that tension of them being cornered.
Yeah. because like that is like the crescendo of all of your suspense, and that's almost like you shot it before the show was even out. So that's my only grievance that I have with the 3 episodes. I don't mind that it's slow, obviously. Like I don't care that it's slow if the pace is because you're doing things to set up and give context and build the world around you. I'm fine with it. Like, so it being slow for the first 2 episodes were fine because you were giving needed context to what's going on in this section of the galaxy. So I had no problems with that. I did like all of the characters that were introduced. B2 was a very interesting take on like what would seem to be like an astromech type of droid.
I'm glad you brought him up because I don't know if you remember, Nick, but the first time I saw B2, I was kind of negative. I was being kind of a dick. I was like, look at this fucking schlub ass droid. Really? You really think I'm gonna like another droid, Tony? And you know what? I fucking love B. I mean, B almost has more fucking heart and soul than any droid we've seen. To me, he's like a combination of Dio, just because of the stutter, a little BB-8, a little C-3PO, right? Because he's always kind of hesitant, want to follow the rules, and doesn't want to go against what his master's saying. But B, really, I was surprised at how taken I was with B and how like he's special. You know, he's got to charge himself to just do basic shit. Like, yeah, I don't have enough power to lie. I love that shit. He's like, I don't have enough power to lie twice for you, Cassian. So B was cool. Marva, I love the shit there, and Clem, and how about Serial Karn, the fresh-faced corpo lieutenant that acts just like any other shithead lieutenant you've seen portrayed in like a World War II movie, where you can tell his platoon thinks he's a big jerk off and they only listen to the sergeant. And then you get the fat sergeant who's also fantastic. So yeah, man, yeah. I mean, the characters here from top to bottom, be it in your face leads, background, or supporting, so far have been kick ass, except for Tim. Fuck you, Tim. But we'll talk more about Tim in our breakdown.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, overall, like I have no issues with how the show's gone so far. I can see, I will say that like, I don't get the whole deal about like giving a show a rating, especially a season of television before it's finished.
Yeah, that's odd.
Like there's 90% on Rotten Tomatoes and you're like not even a third of the way through this series yet. Like, also, this is why I just don't generally give a fuck about ratings either. Like, it's just nonsensical to say that a full season of TV is an X rating out of 10 before you've even seen half of it. If you want to give an individual like episode by episode basis, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, I think that he's done a good job. I do need to see the pace pick up. Hopefully,
I think naturally, I'm with you, man. But I think it just felt like with each episode, it was getting faster and faster and more like, okay, we know where we're heading now. And, you know, we'll save this for speculating on episode 4. But I have a lot of ideas for what's going to be happening on Ferrix now that he's left because of the shit that went down. And then obviously where he is headed. But we'll get there. Before we move into breaking things down, a few more review points. I'm not gonna lie. Once again, he wasn't wrong. The practical sets are a fucking thing of beauty. My God, does it feel like a lived-in universe? Everything about it. I mean, Tim's apartment with 2 M's. I mean, it felt real. The whole town of Ferrix. If you remember, that's that leaked shot where we got. Nick, it was like a drone shot where it looked like they built a whole fucking city, and sure as shit they did. And that is Ferrix, and it just works. I mean, Kenari worked, Morlana 1 worked, Ferrix worked. Everything feels alive, lived in, existed. And I'm not someone that hates the volume. I appreciate that technology, and I still don't think Kenobi's visuals or Book of Boba Fett's visual affected my enjoyment of the series in the least, but it is noticeably different, Andor that is, compared to Mando, Book, and oh shit, what's the other one? Kenobi, right?
Obi-Wan,
like in terms of
yeah.
the cinematography, it's night and day, and it really does feel. Yeah. I think that's where you get that extra layer of grittiness that a lot of people have been throwing out there about Andor. Andor's grit, right? It's gritty.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a gritty show. The one thing that I was worried about right up front was that he was just going to make Jason Bourne in space. Like, you know, when we see the interaction in the very beginning of the first episode where they're in the bar, he's looking for somebody, and then he has he gets into the scuffle with the two corpos and kills them both. I was like, this is just going to turn into Jason Bourne in space, which is fine. Like, it would have been fine.
You're just waiting for Cassian to go around in every scene. He's kicking the shit out of someone, right?
He's just like beating the fuck out of everybody. And like, if that was the case, I would have been like, okay, well, you know, not too surprising given that like Tony's biggest successes were the Bourne films.
Right.
But it didn't turn out to be like that. So I was happy that he gave Cassian his own identity.
Man, I mean, as much as we shit on him, Lord Gilroy, his writing is pretty damn good so far. I mean, what can you say? It's hard to really knock what we watched. I mean, it's exactly what he told us, and it was of the level of quality that he said it would be. So I was happy with it. And you know, last week we were talking about things we wanted to see or feel or we were expecting. And while I'll say that you don't get that Star Wars fantastical feel that you would get in, say, a Mando or an Obi-Wan Kenobi. You don't, right? Like, I didn't feel that at all. But it still felt Star Wars, and it's a version of Star Wars that I'm finding I quite enjoy. I'm always going to be the wizard type of guy. I'm always going to be into that lore, the fantastical, mystical shit lore, over just kind of real-life politics in a sci-fi setting. But it still worked. It still very much felt like Star Wars, even without getting the planet names and seeing some familiar vehicles. It felt like that far, far away galaxy. But it was missing that fantastical magic. But I think that's okay. I like the difference. That's kind of big for me because I'm not one of these guys that's like Rogue One is the best thing I've ever seen. I enjoy it. Yeah. I think it's well made, but it always felt like it was missing that magic, the Star Wars magic. I'm not feeling that in Andor, even though it doesn't touch on all the wizardry.
Now, what I will say is that the first 3 episodes can do that because they were kind of a self-contained on Ferrix / Morlana 1 story where you essentially don't have known and you know, established characters there for you to interact with. Like these are planets that were completely new to canon. Yep. These are people that you're interacting with that are completely new to canon. But once I said in the last couple episodes that like the thing that will really make or break this show is like when you get to situations where you have to interact with known characters, does he do it? And does he do it properly? So, because now we're moving into like maybe not the next episode because he may take some time to go from like just jumping off of Ferrix to actually getting with the superstructure.
They probably have to get away at first. I mean, they're more than likely going to have to hide somewhere, and possibly that's when they go to Saul's. I don't know, but to your point, so you're saying once he gets to talk to like a Saul, you're expecting to feel a certain level of quality or Star Wars-ness. Is that what you're saying here?
Yeah. Well, also like I don't want him to just say like, well, I don't want to use established characters because I don't want to.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Where there should be established characters that are.
So you're more talking about Tony and his I don't deal in cynical cameos statement. Okay.
Yeah, because you know I think the one thing that I brought up before is like if he brings in a random like Imperial like admiral that is supposed to be like the head of, you know, hunting down rebel cells later in the show, and it's not Thrawn, then like you're not doing fan service. You're doing a disservice to the actual canon.
I'm with you there. It doesn't make sense.
That's why like these 3 episodes were fantastic, but that's why I was saying with the review thing is like you have to wait until you get to like the end of a season before you review it. I'm really impressed with where it's come so far, but now that we're moving into a a space in the galaxy that is more broad and does have characters that we are familiar with in it, I think that
you're expecting to see them
get into
because it makes sense. Like it doesn't make sense to leave them out just so you can, wag your penis around and say, hey, I didn't have any legacy characters.
Have any of these people in it. Yeah.
Or no cynical cameos with a big red circle and a slash through it like that. All right.
Yeah, exactly. So because I do think that you can use established characters without it being a cynical cameo.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
that's the only.
We know he's at least been able to do it with Saul and Mon Mothma. Now, does he expand beyond that? Yeah. We don't know because he won't tell us, and he seems very against it. So we'll just have to see. Yeah. I wonder if we even get into Mon's part of the story by episode 4, if that's further down the road. But like I said, we'll speculate.
That's what I was saying is like maybe later in the season for her.
We'll see. We'll speculate on what we think is going to happen tomorrow after we get through all this stuff. So there you go. I mean, in terms, it sounds like from the both of us, we're pretty high on Andor through the first 3. So far, we are still on board with Tony and his vision, and everything that he kind of postulated about this series so far is being paid off on, which is good. He's not just a hype man. There's actually some weight behind what he's saying. The realistic sets kind of add a gravitas to the show. The dialogue is excellent. All the characters, you can now see, Nick, that that 190 plus speaking parts is for sure legit. And some of them we're just going to see them in a scene. But like I said, even that fucking conversation, I'll go back to it, between Luthen and that sales guy, that just adds world building. And like if you listen to what he's saying, it adds some lore too. And I like that little shit. You don't get like clerk style conversations in Star Wars too often. So it's nice to kind of get that just common Joe or June perspective, which Andor seems it's going to latch on to the common folk, the unsung heroes of the galaxy versus the big names and titles and king this or senator that. So good stuff here.
Yeah, no, definitely agree.
All right, so now let's go. We're going to go through each episode. We're going to start with the Easter eggs and then get into some of the key moments, some interesting things that we might have picked up on. But as Nick was kind of saying before we went live, this really isn't a series that goes for heavy Easter eggs, and I'm quite okay with that. But I still cooked up some Easter eggs for all 3. You can check out the shorts on our YouTube channel in the shorts playlist or Andor playlist. So here we go. So episode 1, the slower of episodes, kind of starting with Easter eggs and references. And for the first time, Nick, in a Star Wars show, a new Star Wars show, we didn't fuck around with any desert planets. No black desert planets. Yes. No brown desert planets. We finally have life. It's like wherever. I think Morlana 1 and Ferrix were the first planets introduced. They are new planets. They were introduced in episode 1. They're in the corporate sector, so they're in this free trade sector of the galaxy. I believe mid-rim. I can't remember. But then we also got Kenari, which I know is in mid-rim and is in close proximity to Takodana and Naboo, which kind of makes sense if you look at Kenari's kind of vegetation and compare it to Naboo and Takodana. Very alive, right? Lots of green, forest, trees. So it was right off the bat, Tony breaks from what all these other writers and directors have been doing in these Star Wars TV shows and actually gives us some new planets that aren't deserts.
What I will say about Kenari and it being mid-rim is that it feels weird that it's a mid-rim planet, which are highly traveled planets, like you said. Takodana, one of the biggest hubs for scum and villainy, I guess you could put it, with Maz Kanata's castle and everything else. And then Naboo being Naboo, obviously. And then you have Ferrix, where you have undiscovered tribes because people just don't go there.
Kenari. Trust me,
Kenari, not Ferrix.
Save all this good stuff on Kenari because I have a whole other topic on this. Because you're right, like there is something fucked up going on this planet, okay? Beyond some bullshit mining disaster that's in the Imperial database. Like that's a bunch of horse shit. But we'll get there. Don't worry. There's lots of stuff that I'm sure by now a lot of you have kind of picked up on or read, or maybe even watched my dumbass videos and got clued in. But Nick is right. You don't have this mid-rim planet looking like some outer rim backwood shithole that has literally tribes on it.
Say like it's almost like it seems like it's lost tribes of the Amazon on that's Kalani, or
that somehow have found like modern day parts and shit to scavenge to make their camp and their clothes. So come on. But like I said, let's sit on that for a minute. But I'm glad you two have similar questions. So right off the bat, like I said, we get three new planets. I think the Morlana one is very interesting because I can't ever think in any, at least moving pictures property of Star Wars, that we have really ever dealt with the corporations that kind of popped up under the Empire and how they were essentially extensions of the Empire. Like they were allowed to operate kind of like how the Hutts were allowed to operate in the Outer Rim, where the Empire's like, you know what? As long as you kind of pay us our tribute and keep shit in control, keep the peace, keep order, you do whatever the fuck you want in your corporate zone. Like, we don't care. You can have your own fucking security forces for all we care. So it was cool kind of getting a look at that type of system and planet and how Morlana 1 has jurisdiction over a Ferrix and how that's causing problems. And as we saw already, causing some form of rebellion, even though probably just contained within that city on Ferrix. So good stuff there with the planets. Sticking with eggs. It took me a minute. I had to do some research on this one. I'm like, where have I seen these beasts before? Those ones that were getting ready to, the ones that was pissing on B right at the beginning of episode 1. They're Corellian hounds, and we first saw those in Solo. So that one, I did have to do a little research to figure out, all right, I know these aren't the masses, but I'm pretty sure we've seen these before, and sure enough, they come from Solo. What else we got here? Well, I mean, Casa, we knew this was coming, that Cassian wasn't his real name, but now we get it. We hear his little sister speaking it to him when we first meet Cassian on his now confirmed home planet of Kenari, which is not Fest, which is kind of what it used to be. What else we got here? This guy. How about, did anyone else, and this would have been on Ferrix, you would have saw this big alien almost wearing like a backhoe as his uniform, right? Like literally wearing a backhoe. It almost looks like
the thing. It almost looks like the mech suit from Alien.
Yeah, exactly. Like that Sigourney gets in and fights the big queen and calls her a bitch and all that stuff. This dude, and I guess just for the sake of the show, he's the same guy that we see on Jakku in The Force Awakens, sporting the same fucking getup. So, yeah, his name is Rudown. I looked it up. He's Rudown, and it may not be the exact same alien, but either way, it's a very similar alien. You will see this guy if you're on the live stream. If not, make sure to check out our breakdown post on StarWarsTime.net. But you'll see this alien wearing that essentially like Nick said, the Sigourney Weaver loader thingy from Alien 2 or Aliens.
Really?
All right. Sticking with our eggs for episode 1. Now, they may not be meant for pod racing engines, but I found at Bix's shop, if someone wanted to get in pod racing, they could hit her up and at least secure some parts to build them a pod racer. You know what I mean? So,
do you think that Tony was just like, I just need some shit to put in the background, and the prop guys were like, let's slide some stuff in here and just not tell them that it's from other stuff?
Exactly. Like, they just repurpose this from Pelly's shop from The Mandalorian. There's here's some shit from Pelly's garage. I mean, I obviously they're probably ship engines or speeder engines, but if you look at pod racers, they're more, especially Anakin's. That's what they are. They're mishmash of parts.
That engine looks very, very.
Why not? We're sticking with it. Those are pod racing engines. All right, everyone's favorite douche, Tim with 2 M's. Hate this guy. I hated him the moment I met him and knew like what Tony was doing with him and why this character was included. I was like, fuck this guy. And thankfully, the Corpos felt the same way. But the reason we're talking about Tim with 2 M's right now, and yes, that's how he has to be referred to, because he is a dildo like that, is because if you hear him when he's coming out to spy on his lady love, you hear him, he's like, hey, you want to go on the Wobani run? And Wobani is the planet we first, where K2 clotheslines Jyn Erso after the rebels rescue her from that prison transport. So Wobani is that planet, and it sounds like they were trying to go there to scavenge. So that was a nice little call.
Matt, in this picture, do you think that in that background, that is 3 Jawas stacked on top of each other?
Oh, wow, look at that. That is fucking... What is that, dude? Nice pickup.
No.
That's Darth Plagueis. It's Darth Plagueis.
We
found it.
First, heard it here first. It does look like 3 Jawas.
What the hell
stacked
is
on
that?
top.
Damn, dude, now you got me all... That's that's Sidious. He's spying on Tim because he wants some of that Bix too. You picked it. You
That's
got
right.
it, dude. That's Sidious. He's coming to try to get a little Bix action.
I figured it out
And he
already.
hates Tim with 2 M's just like the rest of the world, except for, it looks like Work More or Less is a big Tim fan. Fuck Tim. I got, like, I could see why Tim wanted to get it on with Bix. That's okay. It's the fact that he's a little cunt. He's a little cunt.
Yeah, you don't have to give up Cassian for because you're jealous of him.
That's a bitch
What is
move,
wrong
man. Like,
with
if anything, have a man-to-man with him. Be like, yo, dude, are you still fucking her? No, I'm not. I just use her to talk with this Luthen guy. All right, fine. Get it out of your system. But no, he does the little bitchy thing. Oh, Cassian's talking to Bix. I'm going to call the Corpos. My name's Tim with 2 M's. So yeah, fuck him. All right, so those are your last one. I didn't include the image, but here we go. There we go. Y-Wing in the shipyard on Ferrix, and we'll get to some of the other ships once we get to episode 2. Don't worry, I definitely saw that ship. All of you are going, did you see that ship? Did you see that? Of course I saw that fucking ship. Watch my videos, people. How dare you ask me questions like that before you watch my breakdowns? Okay, so top moments, and these are loose because, in slow burns, it's hard to find eggs, references, and key moments. But for episode 1, why the fuck not? I absolutely love the title reveal for Andor. It's very like 2001. I almost hear that duh, 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 duh. You know what I mean? Like it's that. I love how slow it is, and it's just that there's kind of like a synth vibe to it too, right? Like a little Blade Runner type of music's playing behind it as it rolls out and fully unfurls itself, and you see Andor and the Rebel crest. I loved it. It's not going to make the top moment of every episode, but I figured for episode 1 we might as well get it out there.
Yeah.
And another top moment, or key moment, I guess. These are key moments, Nick.
Key moment.
I do. I like Nick. It was like, okay, is he just gonna fucking beat up people all the time and shoot people after this scene? But I do think the moment with the 2 Corpos on Morlana 1 was a key moment, because it showed us that yes, this dude, even now, Cassian, is ready to do whatever the hell it takes. Truly, whatever. It doesn't matter what mission he's on, because right now he's on a mission for himself. He's still looking for his sister. He's not doing anything important for the rebellion, nothing for his adopted mother. This is all for him. But he still he still goes there, right? And by there, I mean, he doesn't even fuck around. He shoots the dude point blank with a blaster to the face.
Yep, right in the head.
So
you can just tell that he's desperate. Like from the very beginning, from the first scene where you see Cassian as an adult, he's desperate. He's in desperation
he's being stupid,
mode.
right? I mean, because if you in episode 2, I think, or when Marva finds out, well, like, how did they know about this? And he's like, well, it was kind of me. Yeah, so you're right. You're right. People. He is very he is very desperate, and just getting himself on Morlana 1 and asking these types of questions are what ultimately kick off the whole fucking series. I mean, that was kind of the MacGuffin is his sister, if you will, and the search for her. So yeah, I really like this scene, and it kind of reminds you of the Cassian we first meet in Rogue One, where I'll still remember that. I mean, that had to have been a shock to any Star Wars fan, because we never really saw anything like that from a quote unquote good guy, where he's working with an informant, he gets what he needs, and then he just fucking wastes the dude. You're like, what? That's something Darth Vader would do, not a rebel. So it was nice seeing that, Cassian, if he has to, he will go there. Age for Cassian is odd here, Nick, because I read something where supposedly in Rogue One he's supposed to be 26. So they're saying he's 21 here, and he's probably about 10 in those flashbacks during the beginning of the Clone Wars. So I don't know what the fuck's going on with his age, but he's more than likely in his 20s during Andor.
Yeah, he looks rough for 21.
Yeah.
like he's had a hard.
You remember the scene where they pull up his mugshot? Like that looks like an early 20s Cassian. the Cassian in 5 BBY. He looks like he's, you have to kind of pretend that he's still in his early 20s, but that's technically where he should be. But, I said, we'll kind of get into timelines with the Kenari shit. And then finally from episode 1, a key moment here. Speaking of Kenari, it really is. It's just learning that this dude who ultimately helps bring down the first Death Star came from Lord of the Flies. I mean, I can't think of a better way to put it. He came from an uncivilized, from what at least we saw, an uncivilized tribe that they don't even speak Galactic Basic. I mean, you've never seen a Star Wars show where humans have spoke a language that doesn't even get subtitled. So that was new. I think that was just showing like these people are so disconnected from the galaxy because of whatever situation they're in that they are truly lost in time almost. So I liked learning that like this dude literally came from a tribe that had no technology, no adults, all kids, and clearly they suffered some form of trauma, because you don't just have kids on a planet by themselves with modern gear and tech they've scavenged from somewhere. It's not like you can grow metal on a fucking planet. They got the metal from somewhere. They've got these clothes from somewhere. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So
in a bit, yeah.
It's nice knowing that, hey, heroes can come from the most modest of beginnings, I think is the moral of the story here. Tones is saying yes. Tones, you're right. There is a line in Rogue One where Cassian says he's been fighting from the age of 6, and I think we all just have to kind of now assume that Cassian has been marooned, and that's what I'm going with. I don't think any of these kids were born on Kenari. I'm thinking maybe they were, and the adults got taken, or maybe they crash landed. Who the fuck knows? But there is there is reason to think that Cassian and these other kids have come across outsiders before and have had to, fuck around with it. So he's definitely not 6 in these flashbacks. I'm with you, Tones. There's no way.
You can tell by their, they saw the wreck and they organized. They're like, okay, here's another time for us to go and scavenge. And you could see by their weaponry too, their weaponry was crafted. It was metal poles and stuff that was probably taken from another wreck or another buildings. Yeah, exactly. So they are scavengers, and like Matt said, when we get to the speculation piece on what happened on Kenari,
all I can say again, another tease. I'm really tickling your tits with this Kenari stuff, but it's just there's so much to unpack with Kenari. It's crazy. I mean, they're saying there's Republic when they're wearing CIS patches, and you got kids and no adults. You got a mine that already looks like it had a disaster because some of the buildings are broken down, disheveled. So what the hell's going on? What time truly is it? Is it the beginning of the Clone Wars, or in the middle, or at the end? Who the fuck knows? But like I said, we will get there. I've got plenty to kind of speculate, and I really do hope, Nick, moving forward, and I think there is a lot of people are like, well, he got off of Kenari, so what's the point of revisiting? Well, you got to remember, the show kicked off with him searching for his sister. So even though he's in a world of shit right now with the Corpos and soon to be the Empire, he's not just going to give up that quest. And I think his quest for his sister is going to allow for Andor moving forward to give us some more flashbacks, I hope. because I need to know some shit about Kenari. But anyways, here we go. Moving into episode 2, starting with some of the Easter eggs, which definitely had more than episode 1, but still not what I think we are used to from a Star Wars TV show. Up first, and I bet no other outlet picked up on this, and that's why you need to tune the F into the Star Wars Time Show. But those buzzards pecking at the metal, those are steel peckers, first introduced in The Force Awakens as Rey is heading into town. You see one peck
Ping,
on a
ping,
piece of metal.
ping, ping, ping. Yep.
So right there, that's how you know I am Supreme Leader. Up next, the one that, is like, hey, did you see this? Of course I saw it. If you look in the back right, if you're on the live stream, if not, again, just pull up the our breakdown for Andor season 1 through 3 in web form. But that is very clearly a VCX 100 spaceship. Is it the Ghost? Who the fuck knows? But just like the Millennium Falcon, it was a model that was made, and people would buy them and they'd fly them around. So while it'd be fun to think that, maybe Hera and Zeb and them made a stop on Ferrix for shits and giggles, we can't really confirm that one way or the other, but we can definitely tell you that is the exact same model of Hera's spaceship, the Ghost. 100% the VCX 100.
Yeah. This is another one like that right there. That's some shit that I think like gets put in later and Tony doesn't even know about it.
Well, yeah,
like,
they don't even tell him, because I don't know, man. Like,
they don't even tell him. They just fill this shit with shit. He's just like, okay, this is all ships, so just put ships there.
I got a question.
And
Do
they're
you
like, all right, well,
do you think these were all practical, or is that just really good CG for these ships?
I think it's probably maybe there are some that are practical, but there are definitely some that are CG too, especially like when you get into like the distance shots and stuff like that, because there's no fucking way that Disney is going to pay prop masters to build full-size ships for a shot that is essentially like a shot like this that you only see for 15 seconds.
Yeah, because I mean,
like,
they felt real, because I know that there's a scene in episode 1 where he's in that ship he took
like
them
walking,
and he's changing out the board or whatever, so they couldn't track it. And I mean, that's
that
was real. But yeah, either way, the shipyard was impressive. So yeah, there's our lovely little maybe Ghost, but cool to see nonetheless. Here's a real cheap one here. The Imperial logo. I'm so fucking smart and eagle-eyed, aren't I? But you know what?
There you go. Nailed it.
I did like learning about this unit.
He did say that they're still the Imperial seal.
Yeah, right. Because we saw this in the 10-minute preview, but you didn't really know what the fuck it was. Some people are like, oh, it's like Darth Vader's chest plate. I'm like, well, why the fuck would the Empire be rolling around with those like spares of that? Like, come on. But to learn that it's something called a Star Path unit, in which you could essentially track within 9 parsecs where any Imperial fleet or ship was at. So, that's a pretty important device, and one that they probably should have taken. And it's something, Nick, that I think is not going to lend Cassian's friends well on Ferrix once the Empire gets wind that, A, some shit went down on Ferrix and the Corpos got their ass kicked. Remember the tip of the spear. And B, we found the fucking stolen Star Path unit. So now it's time to really start fucking putting the screws to Ferrix. So as we'll speculate on what we think is going to happen, but I think Cassian's acts again in involving his friends and extended family are going to really bring some pain down on them in the next few episodes from the Empire itself.
Yeah,
the Empire, especially the ISB, are not going to be fans of a Star Path unit showing up on some random planet.
Like random mid-rim trash planet
from a guy that murdered Corpos that the Corpos were trying to take out. Like, it just does not look good for Bix, Marva, Brasso, you name it. It's probably a good thing Tim with 2 M's got himself taken out, because he probably would have got shot in episode 4 anyways. It's not looking good. This was a fucking random one. And again, why you should pay attention to me, because I am a dork and I pick up on the dumbest shit. But when Luthen's flying in, if anyone noticed, like his droid sounded very hoity-toity and refined. And I actually looked it up because it showed up in the captions.
Yeah, I would say it says the model of the droid.
Yeah,
in the
it's
caption.
called a Fondor droid mod. So I looked up Fondor.
Yep.
I'm like, well, what the fuck is that? And sure enough, Fondor goes all the way back to a 1981 Star Wars comic involving Darth Vader. And it's also another kind of shipyard planet. You know, we all kind of think just, you know, the Kawat drive yards or shipyards, that's where they get everything. No, Fondor was another one. And Fondor is also where Vader's executor was built, or executor, whatever way you want to pronounce it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
a deep cut.
That was super deep, man. That was super deep.
Yeah.
But, you know, taking notes helps sometimes, I guess.
Yeah.
I just hear names. I'm like, that probably has been used before, and then I go and do my research.
Somewhere.
So yes, there is some thought put into this stuff, my friends. Please watch them. How about little Cassian had himself a little Bantha doll. So cute.
Little Bantha
He's a
doll.
collector, just like some of us that listen to this show. Here again, it's so hard for me to just not jump off a diving board into Kenari, because I see people in here like, oh, it's an Imperial mining planet, but it wasn't. It was a mining planet before the Empire. Come on, people! Get your shit straight!
Yep.
But what we're looking at here as an Easter egg, you know, we got Marva coming in either trying to gaslight us, or she's been gaslight and saying that these are Republic officers. That's not a Republic insignia. That is the insignia of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, aka the Separatists, the League of Planets that Dooku formed to go against the Republic. So there's some weird shit going on there. But like I said, we got plenty of stuff to talk about. Kenari coming up next. And the pyramid ships. All right, I'm going, okay, yeah. I get some Dune elements there, at least OG Dune. But I was like, I swear there's been a pyramid ship in Star Wars before. So I looked it up. I just did, hey, pyramid ships. And sure as shit, and I don't know if Nick remembers this, because I believe it comes from Legends, but there have been pyramid ships in Star Wars before, and they were called the Tho-Yor. There was 8 of them. The collective of ships were called the Tho-Yor. And apparently, Nick, they were used by early Jedi to take them to some force planets or some shit like that. Maybe even, I think it was to take them to Tython, in fact. So there's some history for you.
Okay.
It's I had to like really kind of draw a through line here to make that connection. But I was like, fuck it, pyramid ship, it looked cool. I'm gonna research it. Sure as shit, there have been pyramid ships that look kind of like this in Star Wars before, called the Tho-Yor. Check it out.
Yeah, I had never heard that, but I do know that like deep like original like OG Jedi and stuff like that, like coming off of Tython and stuff, had some stuff that I'm not familiar with. So
all right, yeah, but like I said, this is like super legend, so it's all bullshit at this point in time. All right, so now we're gonna move into the top / key moments of episode 2, and whatever, call me a jerk off, slapstick. Hammer Guy is my hero. I mean, that he gets the first top moment of episode 2. That guy loves his job. He's dedicated to it, and he does it expertly. I mean, his little routine where he's, you know, taking the deep breaths, spreading his arms out, and then he's like, I mean, it was brilliant. And that's, I honestly think all of society should be ran by one of these huge ass kettlebells in a tower. We should all start our day with Hammer Guy and end our day with Hammer Guy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the,
nice.
I'm sure by
It's
you,
like church bells.
well, yeah, church bells on a Sunday or on the hour, or I'm sure Texas does this, but these days I don't know what Texas does. But do you get every Wednesday at noon the air raid sirens go off test?
No,
really?
Not over here.
That's an Ohio thing then, I guess. But in Ohio, regardless of what county you're in, at noon on a Wednesday, the fucking air raid sirens go off just to, it's like they have to,
Test them.
they have to test it. And that's this guy right here. But clearly this guy is way better. Hammer Guy, we speak your name. Hopefully the Empire doesn't shoot you in the face when they show up and you're ringing your hammer or your bell. Marva in B2, just, again, I did not expect myself to kind of care about this droid. I thought I was just going to be able to write him off, but he really is a part of the family, just like R2 became a part of the Skywalker family, C-3PO became a part of the Skywalker family. B2 obviously was part of the Andor family for many, many years, decades even. And that scene early on where, they're talking like two people. So it's very similar to the relationships that we would see between Luke and the droids and Anakin and the droids. I don't know. I like that bond.
To me, like, it felt even more familial than it did with like R2 or 3PO. Right. Or so like Cassian treated B2 like a little brother.
Exactly.
Like, he was like, I need you, like, you need to lie to mom for me.
Yeah.
Like, can you do that? Can you lie to mom for me? Like,
that's
like
a great point.
Younger.
It really is. I mean, that you're right. It probably is like as close to a true organic family member that we've seen with droids. Because even the big droids, the stars, were still treated like robots. Especially when Han Solo or Princess Leia was around. I mean, they are not nice to C-3PO. They
just dismissed them.
He deserved a lot of it. But, Han, halftime, he's essentially like, just kill him for a few minutes. Turn his fucking power off. I can't stand him. Or Leia, like, shut the hell up already. Or hurry up. Come on. I don't give a shit about your 6 million or your odds. They were kind of abused, where B... And I'll tell you what, like, I was like, if these corpos fuck B up, I'm going to punch the TV. Like, that's how quick I kind of showed favor and a little bit of passion for B2. And it's because of these scenes, and like the scenes Nick was talking about. That's a great point. Him and Cassian really are like brothers. B never felt like a servant droid to Cassian, even though he was doing his dirty work and errands for him.
Yeah,
I do see, like, for some reason my upload is just shit today. It keeps going from red to yellow, but who cares? No one's bitching about it. I've seen some people talk about him in the live stream chat here, but he made my list. Sergeant Linus Mosk is a great little side Star Wars character. He's that prototypical gruff sergeant who his men love him, but he also knows how to talk to the ultra clean, never battle tested lieutenants, and he knows how to make them feel special. You know what I mean? I love the way this guy talks. He speaks Serial's language. He's about law and order and getting shit done. And I mean, he's kind of the one that reinforces the Serial to not listen to his boss and go investigate the murders.
Yeah.
But I like how, rough and tough he is. He's like one of those guys you could see in a foxhole, like, all right, you cocksuckers, we're going to charge this trench in 5. Let's go. And he just runs, and guys are getting blown up because they love him so much, because how he carries himself. He's a leader of men. They're going to follow him to certain death. But just, Nick, you also, through this character and through Serial, you get more of that great dialogue we were talking about. I mean, just the scene between these two, you could see Serial, like, his smile would get brighter and brighter listening to Mosk essentially tell him exactly what he wants to hear. You know what I mean? It's like they play off of each other. They both have ambition, and they know if they just, like, hey, you be the sergeant tough guy, I'll be the lieutenant. We're both going to kind of get what we want, and that's some action. So I definitely appreciated this character.
Yeah.
Sticking with Serial, the douche speech, and it kind of plays into what I said. It just, I mean, go watch a Band of Brothers or go watch a World War II movie. There's almost always a fresh-faced lieutenant that shows up to a battle-tested company, and they all are just rolling their eyes. Like, look, here's another one of these West Point assholes, They haven't, how many of their brothers have they seen mutilated and killed yet? Yeah, he's going to give us this tough speech and blah, rah, rah, rah. And it played out just like that. I mean, half the guys are falling asleep. They're like looking at the sergeant like, really, man? We got to listen to this shit? Like, this is our leader? This is the guy calling the shots? But sure as shit, at the end of the speech, Nick, what does the Sarge do? Great talk, boss. The boys loved it. Yeah. It's just, I love that. I love that dynamic.
As it always goes, too, this, like, that character gets all of his company fucked up and killed.
Yep, exactly.
So it's same shit.
It's just absolutely. I really like the dynamic between Serial and Linus Mosk. They're characters I never thought I would give two shits about.
And it's Linus in particular. You can tell that he was like an Imperial washout. Like, he tried to join the Empire.
Yeah, he drank too much spotchka and ate too many frogs out of a tank or something. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, you're not in shape, you're dumb, you're like, you have no sense of like when something should actually be pursued or not. Like, you're gonna get people killed. And he's like, fine, I'll just go into fucking the corporate security sector. And he does.
I didn't like white anyways. I look better in blue.
Yeah.
It makes my shape look a little more lean. Yeah, so he's like, that's a good point. They're like, have you seen Stormtrooper armor, Linus? Do you really think you're cut out to join the TKs here? You might want to go check out the corpos on Morlana 1. So yeah, we're clearly we have not seen the last of these two. Serial, I think, is obviously he's gonna carry on through and try to latch himself to the ISB agent that is more than likely coming to Ferrix, and I forget her last name. I think it's Deidre, the blonde. But I think Cyril, knowing how he's such a mama's boy, a Dudley Do-Right, he is going to pop wood when the ISB shows out and wants to get the bottom of these mysteries and solve some cases, because clearly that's what he has a hard-on for. But good douchey characters. Like you need these douchey villains. You know what I mean? Like it's a great foil. Like this guy Cyril, he's trying his damnedest to best a ruffian and just fails at every single turn.
He's so easy to hate.
Yeah,
you know, like sometimes we get into you get into situations in Star Wars a lot of times where you have antagonists that are easy to not hate. Like it's easy to not hate Darth Vader. Of course, I love him.
I love when he kills people. I love when he kills good people.
Yeah.
I think it's great. That's a good point.
Yeah, and you rarely, other than Palpatine, like you rarely get a villain in Star Wars that like
I don't hate Palpatine either. Like I actually respect him.
It's like, but this guy, you can look at him and be like, you're just a fucking shithead. I hate you. Like I hope that everything goes wrong for you. And I also hope that they don't build in some sort of like redeemable backstory for him. I hope that he's just some sort of like cog in the Imperial / corporate security machine who's just like who just hates freedom. I hope that's what he
has
is.
To stay. You're right.
Can just continue to hate him.
Cyril has to stay as an episodic loser. Like his mission. Yeah. His use for this, his use for this story, at least season 1, is to be the episode loser. He's the one that is always going to have egg on his face at the end of an episode. I just have a feeling that that's his role, and I love it. All right, so the last moment here, and this is a character actor. His name was Ron Cook. I didn't mention in the video. You probably most recently saw him in the first season of The Witcher. He plays the dude that turns into the gold dragon in one of the episodes. Okay. But the reason we're looking at him here, Nick, and it was kind of an example of one of those world building scenes, but more importantly, his line was pretty slick, especially if you think about what Luthen was on Ferrix for. So this happens right at the end of episode 2, and these two are talking. I'm talking about the businessman and Luthen on that transport. And the businessman says to Luthen, if you can't find it here, it's not worth finding. And I just thought that was beautiful writing, great foreshadowing for why Luthen was there. I mean, he is there to find, in his mind, which is going to be potentially the turning tide to his burgeoning rebellion. So I think that...
And it's also not his first time. Like, this isn't Luthen's first time on Ferrix either. Like, we know from Bix that like he comes pretty regularly. Like, Bix has dealings and tradings with him in the past and stuff like that. So he knows that Ferrix is a place where he can go to either recruit people or get scrap information, whatever he needs for this burgeoning rebellion. So,
that's a good point. And I do like that they established that Bix has been working with Luthen for who knows
a while.
I mean that's the whole reason we meet Bix, is because Cassian needs her to contact him to make some quick cash. So yeah, just through these 2 episodes, so much world building happened in really short amounts of time. And then I think that's another kind of pro to what Tony has done so far. I mean, they accomplish a lot, and just in those 2 slow burns to set up the tension-filled episode 3 and ultimately the rest of season 1. All right, everyone definitely. Take a breath. And now for episode 3. All right, so starting off, we saw these in the trailer, but now we actually know who they belong to. But these Morlana 1 or Corpo dropships share an ass, at least, the ass end to the Clone Wars era LATs.
Republic troop
exactly. In particular, the dropships. The gunships. The dropships had like a hollowed out center so they could literally drop shit from a ship.
Yeah, like their sides were open.
But outside that, that's really the only similarity. So I kind of hedge on should I include this, but I did. So fuck it. There you go. I do like that pyramid ship though, and how it got there, and then all its little baby ships kind of shot out.
Yeah,
cool stuff. Cool visuals of anything else.
Yeah.
All right. So again, we're almost to the Kenari part, people. Don't worry. But early on, when we started getting flashbacks that now featured Marva and Clem, who is going to be Cassian's adoptive father, they're dropping Republic references left and right. So clearly that makes this list eggs and references. Now,
also, did you notice that the masks that they use are the same ones that Han and Leia used when they get out inside of the big sandworm or the big worm inside of the
I glossed
asteroid?
right the fuck over that, Nick, so I'm glad you called me out and shamed me live on the show. I need that type of stuff.
And hey, look, but that's the thing is you got the right image too, because that they're wearing
and I still fucking missed it like a dope. I can get steel peckers, but I can't get these blatantly obvious masks. And yes, you are correct. They even have the same tubes and everything. You are correct.
Same tubes, yeah.
So yeah, they're like, oh, the Republic this, Republic that. I'm going, what the fuck are you talking about? This doesn't even look like a Republic ship on the inside. I mean, it looks like an Imperial ship, if anything. It looks like the Star Destroyers, that old 70s kind of analog consoles and whatnot, but like
vector lines on their shit. It was very
did not look like
Imperial
Republic, but like I said, we got a whole subject on that shit coming up. Okay, during the street fight, as Nick kind of said earlier, shit goes bad for the Corpos as expected when you got Bob the Bozo as Sarge, and his plans all went to shit because he's telling people to wait and stop, and I need to be there to get in on the action. That ultimately leads to failure. But if you heard over the radio after some shit went down, they're like, we need some Bacta down here, Bacta! So there you go. You got your Bacta reference. Bacta is one thing even Tony is okay with putting into a Star Wars. It's a reference in all Disney Star Wars at this point in time.
Yep.
What else we get? Oh, this was a cool one. I don't know if I'm sure others noticed this, but as the episode ends, we learn that the ship that we find Cassian sleeping in at the beginning of episode 1 is the same ship that Marva and Clem rescued him in. So it seems that kind of became his little secret hideout on Ferrix after his adoptive parents took him back there. And I don't know, maybe they fucking hated the ship and just crash landed it or something, but I don't know. Yeah, it's weird that like Star Wars ships seem to never really age. I mean, hell, the Falcon was still flying well 40 years down the road for TFA, but the Andors, it's like once they picked up Casa, they're like, all right, let's just fucking crash land it on Ferrix. We'll leave it out in the dump and go back to our hovel in town. So... but I did like the parallels. As we said early on, that really showed like these were two major moments in Casa's life. Being, let's be real, kidnapped from Kenari and essentially being rescued off of Ferrix. And they literally, that was some of the best cinematography of these 3 episodes, was the constant back and forth to what was happening to him as a kid and how that paralleled the dire situation he was in now in the present. So there's the shot from the present, same ship. That's his sleeping bed. And you can even see the secret compartment where he was keeping the star path. Clem himself popped that open back in the flashback.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Clem is the dad that we have heard Luthen talking about being hanged in Rick's square.
In the square. Yeah.
So that's the guy. All right. So top moments. I said this during our review, but the tension literally was present from start to finish in episode 3. Just fantastic from the cast, crew, and writing. Thank you, Lord Gilroy. I liked how they interwove, Nick. I felt this was key. I've said it 1,000 times now, so we can leave it at this. But the interweaving of Marva and Casa in the past and kind of with what was going on in the present, I enjoyed that of this episode. I like that type of storytelling.
One thing that I will say that that whole portion of these first 3 episodes was actually very reminiscent to Book of Boba Fett, because the storytelling mechanisms were very similar. And it was because of the same thing. Like you're using a character that was already established in both properties, but there was such a large portion of their life that was unknown that you kind of had to do work in flashbacks and stuff. So that was very interesting for sure. So I did like kind of how both of those shows use flashback to give context into stuff that we weren't aware of.
I hope they don't go away. And like I said earlier, I don't think they can, because we still have the MacGuffin, if you will, of why we got the flashbacks. There's something going on with his sister that is obviously going to be major to this series. So
yeah,
I don't. Even though he's off planet, there are many opportunities to revisit times in the past, and I really do hope they touch on Kenari again, because, like I said, there's too many mysteries for my liking. The Luthen and Andor meeting, I've said this a million times. I really think it is a brilliant Star Wars scene. Period. It had high stakes, great dialogue. And you really kind of got a feel for both characters and what drives each of them. And you could see, even though that Cassian couldn't see it, you could see that they are on the same page. Cassian just needs to realize that for himself first.
Yeah. Needs to be pushed a little bit more to see it for sure.
This probably was my favorite part, and it may be dumb, and I know it's been memed now, but the organized resistance of the residents or of the citizens on Ferrix I think it was great. I loved how they went analog with the banging. You just start on one house and it spreads throughout, and they keep it going. Like it's a methodical clank, 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 clank. And if you think about it, if you were a smaller force in that city, like the Corpos were, and that shit's fired up, hell yeah, you would be intimidated. Hell yeah, you
have no idea what's going on.
That would freak you out.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was a brilliant way for these people to rebel. And, for all intents and purposes, Nick, this was a form of rebellion against the Empire vis-a-vis through its Corpo spear. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Which I mean, honestly, the fact that they have this system in place, Nick, it shows you that
they've used
exactly that's where I'm trying to get.
They've used it before.
And you have to assume other planets, other cities have probably done the same thing. So it was nice to see this grassroots rebellion without it specifically being a rebel cell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, and it not only mobilized the small area within the town, it mobilized everybody. Like the people working in the
everything
shipyards,
shut down, and they knew what to do.
People running the shops shut their shit down. Everybody got in, and it was even to the point to where the people in the shipyards could identify all right, that's the fucking Corpo ship. Let's hook this thing up and to a chain and make sure that it explodes before it fucking leaves the planet. They have done this before. They've practiced this run. And they're ready whenever those little bells start getting hit. They're like, all right, time to fuck shit up. And that's, the whole town mobilized. It was great to see something.
I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. It was the perfect way to illustrate what normal citizens are probably doing around the galaxy at this point in time. The Empire is in its ascendancy. Its thumb is probably being pressed harder on the galaxy than it ever was before, which has caused, in this case, the people of Ferrix to essentially develop some form of fire drill that they probably do drill. Like Nick was right. Everyone knew what to do once they heard the clanging. Yep. I mean, Brasso knew, all right, something's bad's going on. These guys are here. Shit's ringing. I'm going to go tie a cable to their ship. It's like,
Yep.
And then the other like the two guys that know Bix knows Luthen. I mean, they were the ones that started, so they're almost rebels themselves because they're the ones housing the secret radio in their shop. So clearly, Ferrix is, I think we can at this point say, an early rebel movement at this point in time. If not, I don't want to say the birthplace, but I mean, they very well could have a rebel cell on it right now. I mean,
yeah, and I mean, even Marva knew because she was sitting in there when they're hitting the bells, bing, 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 bing. She's like, what you need to worry about is when it stops.
She was great. I mean, again, Fiona Shaw is fantastic. Hopefully she sticks around.
She killed.
But yeah, Nick, like the whole time that you can tell that the two corpos are getting anxious and nervous, like, what the fuck is that? It's, it would drive anyone nuts. And then she's like, oh, don't worry about it. You should only worry about it when it stops. And sure as shit, as soon as it stops, that's when everything goes to hell for the corpos. And you can kind of see, like, yeah, these they just look like common people going about their business. They have a plan for when they feel like their freedoms are being trampled on, which is rebellion. So I thought it was fantastic. And my favorite moment of all 3 episodes, the timely death of Tim with 2 M's.
Oh no! Don't tell Jason. Jason loves.
Yes. Sorry, Jason Young, but Tim needed to die.
Tim with 2
he
M's.
deserved that shot. I'm so glad he didn't stop and kept pressing forward to get blasted by that trigger-happy corpo. A guy like Tim deserves to die on the dirty, slimy steps of Ferrix in front of Bix. I feel bad Bix had to see that, but she knew what he did, and I think deep down she's like, serves you right, you little bitch.
Yeah, I mean, she was definitely sad, but like inside she knew that like you didn't just sell like Cassian out, you sold all of us out. Like you thought that they were just going to come here and get Cassian and then leave. Like, I don't think that, I think that everybody knew that like this was the start. Like if it went how the corpos wanted, this was the start of the occupation of Ferrix.
Yeah, because I mean, Nick, I don't know if you heard just some of their casual conversation. They're like, man, we haven't been out here for a while. We should be here more, kind of knocking heads. It's
exactly.
Like they were looking for a fight, the corpos, and they didn't understand that Ferrix knows how to handle their kind. They have their own fight in them through their planning and coordination of the ringing of the metal. So, it was, fuck you, Tim. There is no rest in peace for you. Like Tones is saying, no one's ever gone, but I can tell you right now, there's an exception in Star Wars lore for anyone named Tim with 2 M's. And that right. Includes this guy. He doesn't deserve Bix, right? How did he even... He probably only got Bix because Cassian's such a fuck-up and has screwed her over so many times. Because you heard her, like, Cassian obviously has cheated on her multiple times. He's an adulterer. He sleeps with married women left and right. So, I mean, Cassian, he's a slime ball. But you can tell that he has a spell on Bix where she just can't say no. She can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, she... Like Brasso, they've put themselves in serious jeopardy with the Empire now because of Cassian, who has left them all to kind of fuck off. Same with Marva. He's a good guy, that Cassian. And then for the last time, the end montage in the parallels there, those bright lights kind of signifying a drastic life moment for young Cassa and what we're calling young 20s Cassian at the end of episode 3.
Indeed.
So good little opening there. I mean, nice. I think it gave us what we needed, but I'm definitely looking forward to episode 4, Nick. So let's start with you. Where do you think we pick things up tomorrow if you're on the live stream, or today or yesterday or Wednesday if you're listening to the podcast version? Where do you see things going, or at least the main threads?
So, I mean, I definitely think that it's not going to be like a clean kind of getaway for Cassian and for Luthen. I think that there's going to be some sort of response from the Corpos to try to chase them down. As of yet, the Corpos don't know about the Imperial piece that Cassian had stolen and was trying to pawn off on Luthen yet, so it might take them a little while to figure that out. And they may actually not find it at all initially, at least the Corpos won't, because of just the utter destruction of that building and where it was left. So you could argue that piece may just be completely lost, and you know, you may have a little bit of reprieve for Cassian and Luthen, given that it's probably hard for them to find that piece and directly connect it to like Cassian stealing it from the Empire and everything else. I don't think, I mean, given episode length so far, we've seen like roughly 40 minutes per episode. I think it was 42, 38, 42 or something like that.
And dude, the credits on each one are over 5 minutes, like 6 minutes plus. So these were short. These were short episodes.
Yeah. So I don't think that we'll get directly into the Imperial, or not the Imperial stuff. I don't think that we'll get into the rebellion stuff just yet, unless we do kind of a hard cut away from Cassian as the main character to Mon Mothma, and then see where she is at this point.
There's potential.
But I don't think that Cassian gets into the actual meat of the rebellion in episode 4 yet. I think there's still going to be some like explanation of like what's going on, because like Luthen didn't even mention the rebellion to Cassian yet. He just said like, don't you want to fight these guys for real? And that was as close as he got to saying like, hey man, like, right, there is a rebellion that is building and we could use somebody like you. So he still needs to like give him like the full fucking rundown of exactly what Luthen is trying to do and what Luthen is trying to recruit him into. So I think that episode 4 may be a little exposition heavy and not so much action oriented yet. So for those of you who are thinking that episodes 1 through 3 are a little bit slow outside of 3, because that's where the action picked up, 4 may come back down a little bit, because unless there is like a chase, like an immediate chase that's going to happen of the Corpos going after Luthen and Cassian as they leave Ferrix, you're probably going to have a little bit of exposition that needs to happen just to like get Cassian caught the fuck up on like what is going on and what he's gotten himself into. So that's kind of where I see.
All right, I'm going to take a slightly different path. I feel like we're at least going to get the Imperial side of things introduced in episode 4, specifically the ISB and probably that Deidre agent, the blonde actress we've seen in the trailers. I know what you mean with the Star Path device and the Corpos, but I just feel like that's going to be kind of the beacon that brings the Empire to the planet, if not just hearing about a slight insurrection against the Corpos would bring them anyways. So I do feel in episode 4 we are going to see an Imperial presence for the first time, and there's a good chance they make it to Ferrix to begin their investigation, in quotes, which is, as we know, probably going to involve interrogating at least Brasso, Bix, maybe the shop owner and his son. I doubt it, since they weren't really given names outside of maybe in the captions. I don't remember any. And obviously Marva. I mean, Marva, she's got a fucking, like a spotlight on her. It's known that Cassian lived with her, so obviously they would go there. So I do think we are going to get at least the ISB investigating Ferrix by the end of episode 4. And it's either going to be via the report of what happened with the Corpos, or this device popped up on this planet. How the fuck did that happen? Like, Luthen was going to spend 40,000 credits on it. Like, this isn't just some bullshit device. This is, as Luthen explained, nearly impossible to get. And the fact that Cassian did, that's why he knows he's special. So I do think that is going to result in some backlash for Cassian's friends on Ferrix. They are going to suffer for his sins.
And I think that Tony or somebody within the production has come out and said, like, don't get yourself attached to any characters, because everybody is open for a death scene in this show, essentially, other than, Cassian himself and then the characters that we know.
It could be death or just moving on. Like, I mean, this is ultimately a story about Cassian and how he gets to helping to blow up the Death Star. It would be nice. I remember you and I, we had that bit where, we're going to say Cassian's motivation was like, first, you killed my real mother. Then you killed my real father. Then my adopted mother. And my girlfriend. Then my droid. God damn it, I'm coming. It's like he was going to be Montoya.
He's the Inigo Montoya.
Exactly. And I do hope that it doesn't come to that. But yeah, it is looking like to possibly get him to come out of hiding, they could, put the screws on Marva or Bix or somebody and send out a holo like, hey, asshole, we know what's going on and this is who we got. The other thing, I agree with you. I don't think we make it to the Rebel Alliance proper. I think Tones is on to something where we possibly get that dogfight, spaceship shooting shit we saw in the trailers where Luthen's ship it's evading what looks like an Imperial ship, which would be odd because unless the Imperials were just in the system, or maybe the Corpos they heard the distress signal and quick hyperspace over there, and that's how they're going to catch Cassian Luthen leaving the airspace of Ferrix. But I do think we see that, and ultimately they end up somewhere safe. But like Nick said, probably not with Saw Gerrera getting into the deep stuff of the Rebel Alliance. And what other? And flashback wise, I think we will see I'm not sure why they would do this, but if it's from Cassian's perspective, possibly some stuff of him as a kid on Ferrix, asking about his sister. I don't know, maybe learning the language, learning about whatever. Probably not.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
If we go like flashback again, I wonder if they're going to keep doing that. But you could like at this point, there's no way you flash back to Kenari again. We're already off of it, so you would have to see like him growing up on Ferrix and like
So I would like if we don't go back to Kenari, I think there's an avenue through his sister. Maybe we get flashbacks through a character that's his sister, and she's thinking about, we'll get to see what happened to her when she realizes that her brother never came back from that mission. I feel like there's so many loose ends on Kenari, and I don't want them to just say, "Oh, we'll let the fans can make up their own there." I hate that shit. Fuck you. If you're gonna go the lengths to set all this up and have, say, the Republic, but they're wearing CIS, unless you just completely fucked the canon and made the wrong patch, which I highly doubt happened, you kind of have to explain why. So I hope they do, either through conversations of little kid Cassian to adoptive Marva. But we got to know why they were calling them Republic when they clearly weren't, and what the fuck happened there in some capacity. So I think we do still keep flashbacks, and it's either going to be Cassian kid learning about the galaxy as a whole, or possibly through his sister back on Kenari. I agree. Kingdom of Weird. I think we do see at least a moment of Clem getting hung. That's probably going to be the trailer scene where you see the clones still, because that's Clone Wars era. He was rescued Clone Wars era. Clearly, he had to have been. If not, I mean, we're talking this guy has some of the worst aging genetics in all of Star Wars. Because I mean, if that flashback's not taking place during the early part of the Clone Wars, then Cassian ages horrifically, as if he drinks and smokes all day long. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just constantly.
He's like nonstop. I could see the clones being involved in the hanging, and that very well could be, by the time Clem gets hung, that could be the start of the Empire, for sure.
Yeah.
With the clones still being around, I think that would be fantastic. It's just odd to think that, we're going to go from 10-year-old Lord of the Flies Casa to a few years later, he's this fully
like battle
fully functioning, can speak basic now, and knows the ins and out, can break into the Empire's houses and whatnot. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't. I'm with you. I don't think we get to the Rebel Alliance at large. Mon Mothma's a tricky one. I don't know. Maybe they save her for 5. Unless, like you said, they introduce new threads, which very well could happen. Because we did. You know what? I think you're right. I think you're right. Because if you think about what he said about season 2, he's like, you know what we did in season 1, where one director would direct 3 episodes and would kind of tell its own contained story. I think you're right. Yeah, we very well. Now, there's not going to be a time jump like they're doing in season 2. We know that for sure in season 1. It's just 1 year. But I do think we could start season 4 with a whole new thread being introduced. I think I'm going to go ahead and acquiesce to your speculation. I think you're right. just based on what Tony has said and how they decided to direct the seasons. It was like, you get a 3-shot story, you get a 3-shot story, you get a 3-shot story, you get a 3-shot story. So yeah, all right. Well, there you go.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's gonna. Do we know who the next director is? Like, who's the 4, 5, and 6?
I do not.
So 4 through 6 Andor director. Let's see if we can. Who directed Andor? I don't know if they have them all listed out here.
It's not going to be Toby.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he did. Each director got 3 episodes because I mean Tony's like, yeah, we'll just do what we did for season 1. But
Susanna White is the director for 4, 5, and 6, and Dan Gilroy is the writer for 4, 5, and 6, which
nepotism.
is Tony's brother.
Nepotism Gilroy, you gotta love it. All right.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I've been teasing it all along. This is going to be a longer show. We expect it with 3 episodes. So, but I do. Let's go ahead and zero in on Kenari at this point in time. Let me bring up my notes to make sure I don't miss anything, because Tones is bringing stuff up. It does. There's a lot of weird things to think about with Kenari, at least with what we are presented in episodes 1 through 3. So timeline-wise, let's kind of get there, Nick. Are you thinking those Kenari moments are beginning, like year 1 Clone Wars or year 3 Clone Wars?
So, okay, given the fact that the mining facility is abandoned already...
That's a good point, because if anyone looked, that mining facility already had some sort of accident. I mean, there were like buildings built into the side that were all crumbled and tore apart, so yes.
Yeah, so we're not talking about an active mining facility. And then, like Matt said, there's no adults. So I'm thinking that this is probably towards the latter half of the Clone Wars, because this facility has been used and had a disaster and abandoned. I'm thinking latter half. And because of that, it leads me to believe that, like, I mean, maybe Cassian's not even from Kenari.
Yes.
Like,
thank you.
Yeah. So, like, it almost leads me to believe that, like, the people who were working on this mining facility on Kenari were probably like captured slaves from a different Outer Rim country, or not country, but planet, brought to Kenari specifically for the mining operation, and then more than likely what happened was, like, all of the adults were probably killed in this accident, this explosion, whatever the fuck happened. Every adult parent of these children that are now left on this planet were probably killed. And that may be because there was an insurrection by the adults, which caused the sabotage of the facility. And then some of them died because of that. And then the rest of them were just killed by the CIS is probably what happened. So that's kind of my thoughts on, like, just the holistic situation that we're in on Kenari.
Okay. So yeah, timeline wise, it's hard to pin down which year the Clone Wars, because we know Clone Wars for 3 years. Yeah. That's defined. But I'm with you. I do think it is closer to the tail end. The other big question is that you kind of touched on. Why are there just kids, and why are they living in scavenged huts? And by scavenged huts, I mean, you know, if you think about Native Americans, they made their teepees and all that stuff from what the earth gave them. use buffalo hides, trees, you name it, to make their dwellings. So that's why I'm with Nick. Like, I don't think these people were from Kenari. They were either brought there against their will, or maybe they were promised, like, hey, if you move your family here, you're going to have riches and jobs working in these mines.
Exactly.
But even then, they're not living in what looks like civilized structures. It truly looks like whatever happened en route to getting there, if they did travel there, or if they already lived there, their shit got blowed the fuck up by something. So they were like crash landed and had to kind of build their society there, being marooned. Or, like I said, it was like, hey, move your family here, and all the adults still work in the mines. The kids, they'll be taken care of, and, something nefarious happens at the mines. All the adults are gone, and the kids have to lure the flies themselves for the rest of their existence. They have to scavenge from what they brought from before to kind of keep themselves going, because you don't have a civilization with just children. So I am with you. I do think the adults were either conscripted or willingly joined some mining expedition on Kenari. And that's why these people are here. I don't think they are from or natives of Kenari.
Yeah. And I also think that, like, we have a very, like, we've only gotten a slice of Kenari. Like, I mean, basically you only see, like, the immediate vicinity of where these kids are, and, the strip mining operation that was happening there. Like, we don't even know if there's, like, other civilized areas on this planet. And that's why I brought it up when we were talking about the episodes. It's weird to have a mid-rim planet. Mid-rim is, heavily trafficked, especially within the time of the not the rebellion, but the Grand Republic and the time of the Clone Wars, because you're so close to all of these other, like, super populated, very, I don't want to call them like affluent, but, like, they're relatively, like,
you wouldn't expect to find a completely uninhabited planet in the mid-rim.
Exactly. Like, that's, like, far outer rim, like, maybe even like bordering on the unknown regions,
especially at this point in the timeline. Yeah. So I agree.
Yeah.
It is odd. And the planet has been modernized in some capacity because of the mine. I mean, the mine, that wasn't dug out with fucking shovels and pickaxes. I mean, you could even see the structures in there were very Star Wars-y type of, I don't know, offices or whatnot that were all caved in and blown up. So yeah, I think we can safely speculate that Casa and these people were either brought to Kenari against their will, or were kind of lured there under some false pretense. And the adults were either willingly working in the mine and something happened, or they were forced to work in the mine and the kids were left to fend themselves. I still don't see, though, if you're the bad guy and you're like, hey, we want all your adults, why don't you just fucking kill the kids? Like, what's the point of letting the kids form their own little Lord of the Flies society? You know what I mean? So it does almost feel like
you're conscripting.
It feels like they were there on purpose and some major fuck up happened. And instead of, like, pulling the kids out, the Republic or whoever was just like, you know what, fuck this. Let's just not even talk about it. We essentially killed thousands of people, and their kids are still alive, and we're just going to leave them all there and pretend it never happened.
We're just going to fucking leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like they probably weren't there long enough to, like, establish familial, like, bonds, have these kids on Kenari.
Okay, let me correct some of these guys in the chat. This isn't the Empire's time, my friends.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so get off this whole thing with Empires not using slaves. This isn't the Empire. Unless truly this is right at the end of the Clone Wars. Then, yes, it technically is the Empire under the guise of the Republic. But even then, this shit has obviously happened decades before we are meeting Casa. Right? This mine didn't just pop up at the end of the Clone Wars. It was way too lived in. Their hovels were way too lived in for it to be fresh, for the Empire to be conscripting people.
Yeah. And then also, like, the way that the kids have built a society is not done, like, immediately.
Yeah, they had order. There was a clear leader. They knew what to do. They had rituals with the face paint. Like these kids have been Lord of the Fliesing it to me for a long, long time. Like this is what they knew. They weren't sad sacks like, oh, someone's here to I guess the one girl was like, ooh, rescue us. So that could be a sign, like, you know, maybe I do think they're marooned at this point. They're clearly marooned, but why did they get marooned? And was it
how did they get there? But it's also definitely not Imperial timeline. Let's just put that out there. Like it's not Imperial timeline.
Like the only way the only way we could say the Empire was involved was with quotes like, yeah, the Republic, well, is the Empire, right? But you get what we're saying.
And it's not even the Republic that we saw that landed on this planet, though. It was
that's
the CIS.
That's the next tricky. That's the trickiest of all, I think. But I do think it's safe to say, timeline wise, it's within the 3 years of Clone Wars, more than likely towards the tail end. Situation wise, we're saying that these humanoids that kind of speak their own language at this point in time, like who knows, did the kids just develop this language for themselves? Because
that was another thing that
they
I was
lost the
bring
adults,
up.
so they would have lost their education system and their connections to their past and their civil societies that the adults probably came from. So the question is then, were these people forced to go here to do this, or was it an opportunity that they took and disaster struck and the governing body chose to hide it versus do right by it? Meaning that they're like, all right, the fucking adults blew up. They might have had some kids. We'll just all fucking let them waste out.
We'll just leave.
The trickier part here, and I have some theories, is why was Marva and Clem calling these soldiers and officers Republic? And why were they so afraid of the Republic? And here's some things I want everyone to think about before we get into this. You got to remember, whenever there's conflict, whatever side you're on, you're going to think that side is right. And they're the ones doing the right thing. And ultimately, with hindsight, the CIS were right to be fighting against the Republic because it was Sidious's plan to take them all over using the Republic army. So the Republic really was they were the bad guys technically during the Clone Wars.
Well, also Marva and Clem were saying that like the Republic is about to land
and kill it. So, like they're going to kill you all. Like they were fearful of the Republic.
Kill all of these kids. Yeah. So like and then also you have to remember too that like there was the CIS, yes, there was the Republic, there was that big thing happening, but like there were also people in the middle who were like, I don't give a fuck about either of these.
They probably didn't know who was who. I mean, you could argue, Nick, through propaganda, they might have thought that the CIS logo was Republic.
I mean,
so that to me is the most curious. Like, are Marva and Clem Andor, were they living in a separatist planet at this time? And is that why they thought everything bad was the Republic, which someone in a CIS system would have thought at this time? The Republic, they're the bad guys. They're the ones that will kill everyone. They're the ones that will kill kids if they saw that, you know, this down ship was here.
Yeah. So it's also very curious that they got to that wreck so quickly. Like, yeah,
it's almost like they're tracking stuff. Like they're tracking, you know, ship traffic around the mid-rim or around that planet in particular. It's not like they were there to look for kids. They were there to solely scavenge power cells. And if they are scavenging power cells, it does sound like they could have been in a CIS type of guerrilla faction. Like, hey, we got to get what we got to get because we're not the Republic, right? The Republic had the massive arms of the galaxy behind them. They had the Senate, they had the monies, all that stuff. The CIS, if you think about it, outside of Grievous's forces, they were mostly like Vietnam-style guerrillas.
Yeah, independent planets that didn't have like formal
right. They didn't want to join the Republic,
like
so they're like, "Fuck you." I mean, if you think about it, the CIS. They really ultimately were the last freedom fighters of the galaxy.
Yeah. I mean, at least the planets that joined up for the cause and not were like, you know, clearly working with you know, Dooku and Sidious, stuff like that. And what's also interesting is that like, okay, so this ship comes in. This ship didn't have like engine problems. This thing got shot down. Like it's coming into the planet. There's a clear shot that's it. fire is burning on its side. This isn't just like some like engine trouble. We have to land on this planet because this is where we got to land. They got fucking shot down. So like almost in my head,
Tones just
this is
hit
what
on
I see
right to where I think you're going. Go ahead.
So
lay
like
it on them.
There is a battle that's like happening between the Republic and the CIS over, somewhere in the vicinity of this planet. And I almost see like if you think about, if you're a scavenger within this galaxy, if you're, a smuggler, a scavenger, somebody like Rey, like you're probably like, okay, there's a fucking battle breaking out. Like if we just sit on the outskirts and don't like let anybody know we're here, just stay silent, we can scavenge the pieces of these downed vessels and sell them off for us to make money. All we have to do is just be able to track where these ships land. So like that's almost what I think is happening with like Clem and Marva is like they're just like on the outskirts of this battle. That's why they get there so fast. They're like, look, okay, we got a CIS ship going down, landed on Kenari.
But they think it's Republic. That's the thing that still fucks my head. Like those two, they're the ones that told us you guys killed Republic officers. And I'm going, no, they're not Republic officers, and this doesn't look like a Republic ship. I mean, there was no Republic
and
ships that look like that.
That's what almost makes me think that they're like completely removed from both factions.
Right. And who knows what propaganda they've gotten in their part of the galaxy too. I mean, everyone could be bad to them. As I said, the Republic could be showing the CIS symbol, be like, hey, this is us. Or, the CIS could be like, hey, if you see this symbol, these are bad. You just don't know. But it is, I do think you're right. I think it was shot down. Otherwise, the gas they were transporting combusted and really fucked that ship up. I mean, to have a gas fuck up a ship of that size, it would have to be a severe explosion. So
and then to have like, not only to have like Clem and Marva get there so soon, but to have the Republic, like if it really is the Republic that's coming right behind them and is getting ready to land, and that's what's like hurrying them along, like if that was just like a solo ship accident where like one of these fuel cells exploded, there would be no reason that a Republic vessel is that close behind it. Like the Republic vessel shot this motherfucker down and was like, all right, it's going down, we're going right after it. Like we're like, we see where it's landing and we're coming right behind it. But Clem and Marva was just like right in front of them.
And more than likely, kind of another point to bring up, the reason they're probably after it is because of that yellow gas. I mean, whatever killed those people. That's more than likely, Nick. I'm thinking that yellow gas is more than likely the refined product of what they were mining on Kenari. Maybe that's why that ship was up there. Maybe it's processing this stuff to make this yellow death gas, which clearly works. It turns people yellow and you die.
And you die.
It's just the thing that I can't get my head around is why Marva and Clem were so adamant that all this was Republic doing. Like that, the down ship was Republic, the dead soldiers were Republic, the inside of the ship was Republic. That's the only weird thing. I think everything else we speculated on, that makes sense, but that I just can't. Why would they think that? Or what sort of propaganda were they told that when you see the CIS logo, that equals Republic? It's just, I don't know. I just don't know. I guess one thing that could describe it or sort of make sense is if this truly is days or a week after the end of the Clone Wars, where, mid-rim, outer rim, kind of like in World War II, you still had Japanese guys in the force waiting for is the war over. They just, like, no one really knows what's going on. There still could be fighting going on out here. I don't know. The whole Star Wars speculation internet all has the same question after last week. Like, how in the fuck did CIS get equated to Republic, and why? Was the Republic, is this a ruse? And those were Republic soldiers wearing CIS uniforms to make the CIS look bad, to try to pin the Kenari disaster on CIS. Let's say Kenari was a Republic mission from day one. They're the ones that convinced the people to go there and mine for them. The Republic needs you, that type of shit. and shit goes to hell. They lose all the adults. They're like, oh fuck, we're the Republic. We can't let this news get out. We need to start building up our cover up. And the cover up is the CIS. They came here and they fucked up the mine and they were making this gas. And luckily we showed up and shot them down and saved the fate of Kenari. Something like that. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it could be, because that's kind of the whole story of Andor, like of Cassian, is like, we've always had this picture painted of the Republic that they're like, you know, they're the good guys. They don't do anything wrong. They're the ones who are fighting for peace and justice in the galaxy. Same thing for the rebellion. And then then you find out in Rogue, like, the rebellion did some equally shady shit, and they had equally shady characters on their side. And like, you know, when it comes to wartime, you're not really thinking about like, is this the morally right thing to do? You're thinking about like, what is going to give my side the best chance to win? What is going to, in the eyes of the general public and the populace, like, what is going to make us seem like the right faction to back?
Yeah.
So,
and in the end,
could be
who is running the Republic right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking Palpatine.
Chief Palpatine. So, as I said, you know, all of us, we're all, you know, doe-eyed in love with our named clones. The Republic Army was the first arm of the Empire, technically. Like that. Yeah. I mean, he used that to, fucking waste the Jedi mostly. He's like, I'll just, you know, commission a few million clones. That should be able to take out a couple hundred Jedi. But it was to start this war and have a standing army at his disposal that would do anything unquestioned. Clones, chips, Order 66. I mean, if you think about the Republic at the time, they were the bad guys. We love our Jedi, we love our clones, but they were created for nefarious purposes. And there's a good chance throughout the galaxy to keep sowing Sidious's long game and his plan, he was probably using the Republic to do shady shit. And Kenari, I think, could be one of those examples where they were doing some fucked up shit on Kenari for the resources, and they're now going to use the CIS as cover. Like, we didn't do this. We actually came here to liberate, and somehow Marva and Clem, they're in the know. They're like, nah, and it plays into what Nick is saying. Like, if they've been monitoring this system, they probably see what's going on. Maybe they even heard some chatter on the channels. Like, all right, you ready for Operation Pull the Wool Over Their Eyes? Yeah, let's do it. Let's shoot down that ship, and you know, we'll sacrifice the crew. Who gives a shit? They're all dressed up in CIS stuff anyways, and let's plant the seeds. And so, you know, 15 years down the road, when Cassian learns about Kenari, the only story is, oh yeah, there was a mining disaster, and the Empire has essentially quarantine the planet, and we all know there's no fucking disaster. The quarantine is because some really horrible shit went down there, and they don't want anyone to know exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Woo!
Lots of interesting stuff to come from
and
from
that
Kenari,
honestly, dude,
if they continue that.
And I've talked about this before. It's this type of shit that gets me up in the morning for Star Wars. It's this lore and kind of peeling layers back from the past that should kind of expose why things are the way they are in the present time. So I really hope we do get some more answers on this whole Kenari conundrum, as we'll call it here on SWTS.
Good.
All right.
Stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So
that's
a few other little quickie things we got here, but that's our
that's the heavy lifting.
There you go. Yeah. So those of you, hopefully it was worth the wait. It was like 2+ hours of Andor deep dives. We do have a few more things to go through before the fan segment, but we'll try to make them quick. There's really nothing to really speculate on. There you go. Yeah. I'm going to get one out from my man James Earl Jones, who, as Nick posted for us, has officially retired, and he, like Luke, Vader's voice will now be replaced with that machine learning AI stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of two minds on this.
Well, didn't we get sort of this? Wasn't Kenobi the trial run for this then?
Yes. Okay. So they did use Respeecher, which is the AI program, the Ukrainian AI program that they are going to use for Vader moving forward in Kenobi. They also used Respeecher to make Luke Skywalker's like younger voice in Book of Boba Fett. And like I said, I'm of two minds. I mean, it's incredible that the software is to the point to where like you can literally just like feed in data, like just essentially like let this AI watch the original Star Wars movies, and then like it can fucking remake James Earl Jones's voice and do the whole thing by itself. That is incredible. I will say that like there are real people out there who could do this job and who could do Vader's voice.
Agreed.
As well as this respeecher program could. And I think it's kind of sad that they didn't even attempt to cast somebody to do it. Like there's videos out there, like after this was announced that like the official word from Lucasfilm was that like respeecher is going to take over. Like there are people who had already done Vader's voice and like, and then put these videos up on YouTube. And it is odd. Spot the fuck on.
I mean, I wonder if it's just a cost saving thing at this point, right? It's like, hey, the technology does good enough, so why get an actor on the payroll and have to give them royalties? But yeah, I'm with you. I don't, especially for a character like Darth Vader, where you can definitely get away with using someone else because the voice is going to be modulated anyways. Because I guess I understand the Luke stuff a little bit because Mark's voice has significantly changed, as a lot of us do. When we age, you lose some timbre. But yeah, I'm with you, dude. I don't like this. I don't like this idea. And I hate to say this. I mean, I think Rogue One Darth Vader does not sound right at all. And I know that was James. Everyone go back, do some homework, go back and listen to the Vader in Rogue One. He does not,
you tell his voice was getting a little shaky.
Yeah, exactly. He does not sound right. He does not sound like Vader of the original trilogy, which is, to be expected considering how old James has gotten. But Nick's right. I mean, what are we doing here? Like we literally are falling into the trap that science fiction writers and movie makers have been exposing us to, trying to warn us about since the dawn of storytelling. Everything, it's all AI. I mean, it's here. Machine learning and AI. I mean, if they're going to now voice Vader, what's next? Are they going to be writing the scripts now? I mean, fucking Skynet.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, because, I mean, look, obviously the AI does an incredible job. Like, like it did it in Obi-Wan Kenobi. The voice was very good.
Do we need to replace voice actors already? Like, can we still leave that as a meat bag role? I mean, look, I'm a technical guy. I get it. I understand, especially a lot of old manufacturing processes and manual anything in business probably should be replaced by technology. Yeah. As sad as some of you people, your skilled laborers or whatnot, that it's just, it is what it is. But do we really need to start replacing people's voices with robots now? Like, come on.
I think the main thing for me is that like you can't tell a robot like, hey, do it more like this, or like this is an emotional scene.
You're
or
right.
This, like, you should feel angry here.
Yeah, because all they can do now is like, toggle a slider. Like, oh, I'm gonna up the anger meter a bit so it knows to do this inflection. It's like, you're right. And hey, listen, for Darth Vader, I think it will be fine because he's very monotone. I mean, sometimes he yells a little bit, but you definitely could pass off a machine doing Vader's voice because he's a fucking machine. I'm worried about, moving forward, them digging their heels in. Like and Jason makes a good point in the live stream. It seems because of the fans' toxicness over the Han Solo casting and what Kathy Kennedy has said as recent as this summer, they're all in with never trying to use anyone else to do any performance for any legacy characters again. So I guess, Nick, this is why the machines are taking over. I don't know if that's better though. I really think humans, the point you brought up, the ability to add emotions organically, you're going to lose out. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's sad in a couple ways. Obviously, you have a true icon of not only Star Wars, but just cinema in general, and James Earl Jones hanging up one of his most iconic characters of all time in Darth Vader. But then also, you don't even have a person picking up the mantle. It's just this soulless
It's a
AI
fucking program.
and it's like,
The crazy thing is they probably have like at least 4 or 5 people to curate the program instead of hiring one human to do the voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, dude, I heard this guy, like, I'd have to try to find the video again, but this dude like did a Vader voice, and it was like, I listened to it and I was like, is he like fucking James Earl Jones's son? Like, what? How did this guy essentially just perfectly recreate Darth Vader's voice? And there are people out there who can do this, like, and they just chose to go this direction. And it could, like you said, it could be cost related. It could be down to like they just don't want to have to deal with fan backlash anymore. And, they just said like, fuck it. Like if we know if we put somebody else in this position that people won't even give them a chance. Cause like if the article came out and said, James Earl Jones is retiring as Darth Vader, and from here on out, the voice is going to be done by Joe Blow. Before even hearing Joe Blow's voice, the internet would be like, "This is going to fucking suck.
Sellouts.
It's ruining the character.
You killed my childhood."
Exactly.
Yeah, I got you.
So, like,
I know.
It's just,
it is.
It's sad.
It is odd,
It's sad
but
to
hey,
see
I
it
guess
like this.
for a robot character,
have a robot
it
voice.
makes sense at this point.
Yeah.
All right, so sticking with the technical wing of Star Wars, a report came out this week on the future of Star Wars game releases now that EA is no longer the exclusive publisher. And this comes from Insider Gaming, that Tom Henderson guy who's had a few other leads on, Star Wars game leaks, the future of Star Wars gaming. And really what the report is, according to his sources, Disney is really trying to shoot for a bi-yearly release cadence for Star Wars video games moving forward, which would mean, it was explained to Insider Gaming that this would typically mean a AAA and some form of, mobile, janky little title a year. So 2 games a year from the Star Wars license moving forward now that EA no longer has exclusive access. But, Nick, if you think about it, you're like, all right, cool. That sounds great. As a Star Wars fan, it would be like, living at the turn of the century where it did feel like you were getting at least 2 Star Wars games a year, AAA. Obviously, there was no mobile back then, but from the Phantom Menace all the way through Revenge of the Sith, and I think even Clone Wars got some video games. You had Star Wars games coming out. You had the Jedi Knight Academies. You had the KOTORs, the SWTORs at some point. That was, honestly, my friends, mid-90s to say what, Nick, 2008? That was probably the heyday of Star Wars video games. Yeah,
I think 2008 was when the second Force Unleashed came out, and then after that is kind of when it kind of fell off.
Nothing until the Battlefront reboot, and then Battlefront 2, and then ultimately Jedi Fallen Order. So, all right, whatever. I don't think any gamer or any Star Wars fan that games would be upset with this announcement. The question is, Nick, is this really even feasible with what has been announced for the future of Star Wars games? So I think there's been only 8 titles announced so far, and some of these have already had to switch publisher and are probably looking at 2 to 3 years from now before they release. So again, how are we going to pull this bi-yearly stuff off? So here are
I guess it comes
right. I mean, wishful thinking. I don't fucking know, but so. We have the Amy Hennig's game, the one that we think is going to be what she was actually working on back at Naughty Dog. Where you kind of have that Han Solo character, the roguish type. There's an Untitled FPS from Respawn. Okay, these are the same people that do Jedi Survivor, which we know that's happening. There's the Ubisoft open world Star Wars. There's Star Wars Eclipse, which was at Quantic, which has now been sold to another parent company, so who the fuck knows what's going on there. The KOTOR remake, which we just told you had to shift developers, so that's probably delayed. Survivor Fallen Order sequel, we know that's at least coming out next year, so I guess there's one, but that's from EA still, so what the fuck. Star Wars Hunters was delayed to next year. So I guess
boom,
there it is.
Next year.
They paid off on
Two.
On the rumor. So we are going to get Hunters and Survivor and Fallen Order. So it starts in 2023. 2 Star Wars games a year. But really, after that, it's like, how are you going to keep that schedule up unless there are just a bunch of pre-dev games out there? So
yeah. That's what I was going to say is like what it really comes down to is like, okay, I'll buy this cadence, but when does it start?
Exactly.
Like, are you saying that like 2 games a year starting in 2024?
Or when I'm dead.
Or, yeah, like, does this start in 2030? Like, when is this supposed to happen? Here's the thing that I'll say, and this has always been the case for video games since as far back as, as I can remember, like even fucking PS1 days. Like, there's always like a release dream date for a game. It almost never happens. Like the first announced release date for a game almost never happens because as has always been in gaming, especially when gaming became super mainstream starting in early 2000s, like 01, you start your dev, everything's going along, but then inevitably you have a crunch time where you have your entire dev team working fucking 20 hours a day for 4 months because shit's not going right or your release date's coming up and you're not even close. Like, it's hard to say that if you don't have at least 4 titles planned to release in a year. Because if you only have 2 titles that are planned to release in a year, it's almost guaranteed that one of them's going to get pushed out of that year. So it's a hard promise to keep unless you have a lot of irons in the fire at one time.
I mean, the article went on to mention that, and we've talked about it. We showed what we thought was a leak, but there's apparently a Mando game that's been kind of kicking around the rumor mill, and you would think that would make sense. I mean, I know the games weren't great, but I felt like they always had a built-in audience when you would release a game that would tie into a movie. You know what I mean? I mean, the Obi-Wan Kenobi game for the Phantom Menace, I believe Revenge of the Sith had kind of a movie companion. And while they weren't excellent games, for people like us, it still, allowed us to interact and kind of live out the movie in a more interactive style than just watching it. And Mando seems like the perfect universe to do something like that. Not necessarily retell the adventure, but just use the damn universe. You have a built-in audience of casual Star Wars fans and hardcore Star Wars fans. There's going to be a cross-section of gamers in there. So why the hell hasn't that come to fruition? Is it all just because of the EA license and Lucasfilm has just been holding shit back and back and back and back, and now they're going to unleash the floodgates, fire up LucasArts and kind of, get that pumping and cranking on some stuff again? I don't know. I mean, hey, we're here for the games. I just don't believe that. I don't believe this is going to be a reality unless they've been holding on for cards for so tightly that no leaks have made it out, and they're just going to wow our faces off over the next couple years. But
I mean,
I wouldn't hold my breath though.
Like, I would love to believe that the problems with Star Wars releases all hinged on EA, because we know that EA is a fucking disaster of a publisher. They can't even make their own games at this point anymore. Like, they've completely destroyed the Battlefield franchise. They've essentially nuked their own studios. Like, so EA itself is just a shit show of a game publisher, and it owns too many studios to properly manage. But I also don't believe that they were the sole reason that the games, like the Star Wars game cadence, was the way it was. Like, I do feel like to some degree Lucasfilm and Disney were shooting down a lot of ideas.
I could see
maybe that. Like, so I just don't know. Like, it is unquestionably better to have the entire game development ecosystem at your behest now instead of just one publisher. But you need to have a lot of deals going to be able to do what they want to do. And I hope that they can do it, because we've essentially had a decade of time where we've had fucking nothing in terms of the Star Wars
they got the
video
license.
game landscape.
It was like 2014 or it was like right when the main sale happened. I mean, EA's been in bed with Disney Star Wars pretty much since they Iger cut that check.
Yeah, I mean, it's like almost 8 years at this point, because we had it might be 9, because we had the release of TFA in 2015. Which means that they signed the deal to sell to Disney.
So yeah, it would have been 2014.
Late
it's 2014.
Yeah, 2014. Yep. So we've had 8 years, and in that time period of Star Wars video game releases, you've had Jedi Fallen Order, Battlefield or Battlefronts 1 and 2, and then what?
Squadrons. And
Squadrons,
and
like
my favorite and probably the best that they've done, and I still play it to this day religiously. Star Wars Galaxy of fucking Heroes, pal.
Yeah, I mean, like you had some mobile titles.
That
like,
is wild.
They had that one other game. What was that other game that we played for like 2 months and then we put down on the phones?
Sweet.
It was like
it was like a oh shit, I forget the genre.
It was like a MOBA, almost kind of like a MOBA.
Yeah, it was kind of like League of Legends.
You played like cards.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like you played cards and those put units down, and you're playing PvP against somebody else with their cards.
There was Star Wars Uprising, which was kind of like almost like an RPG on mobile. So yeah, I mean, it is wild that EA. And I think you are right, because you would think if you're a publisher and you have the Star Wars license, you'd be like, we just got a license to print money. So let's go. Let's like Tones is saying in the chat. Let's remake X-Wing. Let's remake TIE Fighter. Let's remake X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Let's remake Rebel Assault. Let's make this new one. Let's start this RPG. Let's start this MMO. And they didn't do shit. We just announced that they made like enough games that we can count on our stupid toes and fingers. It was like nothing.
Not even toes.
Yeah, you just
could
hand.
Name all of the games that they made on one hand.
One hand and maybe a ball. I'll use one of my testicles as the next digits. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so I think you are on to something that maybe Disney was kind of fucking them from the get-go.
Maybe. It's just so hard to tell, because EA is such a disaster that it's not hard to believe that they would shoot themselves in both of their feet and their face at the same time. Like, I feel like at this point, I don't know.
Star Wars fans, even the thing about younger gamers, they've probably never really played Star Wars games more than once every 5 years, getting a new title. It's just. I just remember the glory days. You had the Super Star Wars on Super Nintendo. You had the 8-bit Star Wars on Nintendo. There was always Star Wars video games to play that weren't called Battlefront. And it seems that's it. I mean, that's really the only Star Wars game people stick to these days. And more power to you. I can't play the same fucking game over and over for 6 years straight. Just, it does not work. So there you go. I wouldn't get your hopes up outside the fact that, EA has lost it and Disney didn't re-up. And it does sound like through LucasArts, they're going to be working with all these other developers and publishers. Ultimately, LucasArts will probably be the main publishing arm for Star Wars video games going forward, using other development studios.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right.
So, keep your eyes out, I guess, over the next 3 or 4 years to see if we get 2 Star Wars games a year.
Oh, I can tell you that Empire at War works quite well on the Steam Deck. So if you are a Steam head and you've gotten mixed up in Star Wars sales on Steam and you do have a deck, some of those older games do play, even though they say they're not perfected. Empire at War works quite well. Sadly, Tones, Galactic Battlegrounds does not work at all, and that one is a dick punch.
I will. I should be getting my Steam Deck tomorrow. Sweet. What's concerning to me is earlier today before we went live, I was on Twitter scrolling and I saw like a pretty prominent person in the gaming industry. He's like a personality in Halo. His name's Golden Boy. He was supposed to get he got his Steam Deck package today, and there was no Steam Deck in the box.
I love that shit. Quality control.
He opened the box, and it was all it had in there was like I guess it was the charger that you get with it.
Man,
there was no fucking Steam Deck in it.
Some poor kid in a third world country just got fired, Nick. They forgot to pack in the gear when they're like, keep going, your 20-hour shift isn't over yet.
Oh man, we'll see. So I'm fingers are crossed that when I get my shit tomorrow, that
cool.
the
Yeah,
Steam
I'll
Deck
be
is
interested
actually in the
next
box.
week to see what you think of it. I mean, you're a much more savvy PC player, so you probably have all sorts of titles in your library you can already break out on the deck. But I haven't.
I've been playing Batman Arkham Asylum because I own all the Arkham games, but I never played them. So I just started playing Arkham Asylum on the PC, and that is one that I want to see.
I believe those are rated as green, so good experience on the deck. But yeah, no, it's a cool little device. I haven't touched mine as much as I was when my leg was broken, which makes sense because I can move around more. But it's much more solid and useful than I thought, especially because I think the one thing you'll find, hopefully they make it easier, but being able to play your Game Pass titles on the deck through the cloud is pretty fucking sweet.
That is pretty nice. Cool. I do want to check that out too. Is that a pretty easy integration?
For someone like you, yeah, you'll be fine. Non-technical people, I would say, have a technical person do it because if you have all the gear, so it's gonna be super easy. I had to do it on the touch screen. You literally have to type in Linux commands, but you'll just plug it into a fucking keyboard and a mouse, and it'll be easy. Nice. All right. So we're about going into the fan segment. We did have something here. I know Tones brought it up, and I did see this. I do want to acknowledge it. We did see Bespin Bulletin's leak of the Skeleton Crew set of a speeder bike stunt. There just wasn't a lot of meat to go off of, which is why I didn't bother Nick to cover it and why I didn't cover it myself. If we could see characters and glean plot, I probably would have ran with it. The only thing I would say, if someone has seen this, I'd actually argue that Bespin Bulletin's off on the character on the bike. To me, it almost looks like a stormtrooper, the way they crash and kind of the armor you can see. So I guess that's something you could chew on for that topic if you've seen the Skeleton Crew stunt speeder bike set leak video. All right, so there's my 2 cents on that. So that takes us to the fan segment, a little bit later in the show than we're used to, but we did have a 3-banger to get through with Andor. Next week we'll be back to just solo episodes until Tales of the Jedi gives us another Double Up Wednesday, and of course we'll cover all that stuff for you on the SWTS the following week. But it is time for the fan segment. If you are new here, we do this every show, so we do have a dedicated segment for our fans, and we want you to get involved because maybe you'll come back and keep playing like Tones and Neri and Jason and Bat. Who else was in here today having fun with us? The usuals, yeah. Kingdom of Weird, 1-6, have some fun. Johnny Boy. We like to hang out because we celebrate our fans. And the first fan segment topic that we do, or a way for you to get involved, is our question of the week. So every week on Instagram at Star Wars Time Show, we pose a question that we would like Star Wars fans to ask themselves and then respond to. So it'll be in our stories and in our profile grid. All you have to do is either leave a comment on either form of the question. Okay? And then we'll pick them up. We'll read them. Hopefully you have bad grammar because that makes me laugh. And then we'll possibly discuss your thoughts. And we typically like to ask a question that we've been talking about on the show. So this week and for the next 9 weeks, the question will be like so. What was your favorite or least favorite, for those that like to be negative, part from the Andor? See, I can't even read my own question. So I'm falling right in line with having bad grammar and marbles in my mouth for this segment.
It's like BMO. He's like stuttering.
But anyways, what did you love or hate about the Andor 3 episode premiere, Nick? All right. So you fielded all the responses today. I don't know what's coming. Let me flick the screen and let's see what they had to say. All right. It's up now.
I will say that there was a mix of feelings in the responses in the question today, which was actually surprising given how the reception to the show has been. But we're opening up with one that is one of those surprising reviews. So this is from Grimicus, Grimikус on Instagram.
Distant relative of Grimace, the big purple guy at McDonald's. Indeed. Yes,
he is the big blue guy. That's
Grimicus and Grimace's
cousin.
Oh boy.
But Grimicus says, was way too slow for me, barely made it through all 3 episodes. Hopefully it will pick up a little. The non-Star Wars-y curse word was disappointing. Always liked the way we got like Star Wars specific curse words. We'll continue watching to see if it gets better. I may have missed did he say shit or something?
Okay, because I know sometimes I have to kind of pull the lid off of the worms from the Star Wars fandom. But yes, this was a big deal. Apparently, Linus, our buddy, the sergeant, I believe he says shit, and that was apparently offensive to some Star Wars fans.
He did not say poodoo.
Yeah, poodoo, or what's the one that they say way too much now, and Dank Ferrick.
Dank Ferrick?
Get the fuck out of here. I would love for someone on Star Wars to just turn around and be like, shut the fuck up, droid, something like that. Like, who cares? I mean, Nick, think about it. Is it that big of a deal? They use all of our other English words, and the fact that they used an English curse word, that's a big deal? I don't know. Whatever, man.
I honestly, it slid by so much that I legitimately did not know what he was talking about. But I mean, I guess like when there has been like an established slang within a universe, like it is kind of weird to break it, but like it happened in such a sly way that I literally didn't even notice it.
No, I mean, dude, I watched this with the pause button and a notepad, and it was nothing I felt like mentioning. So that's kind of
I mean, like his main criticism is that it was slow. That is the main criticism that was out there so far, is that it was slow. So I mean, hopefully within the next few episodes, Grimmicus can we get a little bit more action.
All Star Wars fans to be happy. I'm being serious. Like I really do get bummed out when Star Wars fans are bummed out. Like because I remember that feeling when I went through the prequels. It sucks, but sometimes these days, who cares? Everyone's entitled to think whatever the fuck they want. I give up on that shit.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Lima for Photos, our good friend. He says, "I love how Lord Gilroy has been pitching this."
He's a listener because he picks up on the stupid shit we talk about.
The Lord Gilroy talk. Yeah. Has been pitching this as a non-Star Wars, but still left a nice helping of little Easter eggs, references, and nods to the super fans. Either way, I'm loving it all, and I can't wait to see more. Slow burn, I don't care. We're here for the big picture, a fully told story. Is it Wednesday yet?
Lima's always well thought and said, of course.
And look, I will say, Lima, those Easter eggs were not the work of Tony Gilroy. Those were the special effects people in the background.
It's like they almost had a game like, hey, let's see what we can slip in here to see if old man Gilroy picks it up and cuts our head off.
They were like, this dude's not going to notice anything we put in.
They could put we could put in a fucking Cylon. He'd be like, what the fuck? What Star Wars movie is that from? Is that from one of those fan fictions? Because remember, Tony studied the fan fiction too.
The fan fictions as well. The fan fictions and the fake cartoon canon. Oh man! All right, work more or less. Our good friend in the chat right now.
Jason has a big voice in today's episode. Not only is he active in the live stream chat, but he gets himself a little question of the week feature.
That is right. He says it was a good call to release the first 3 episodes as a first act to set up the world, introduce the characters, and immerse the viewer in the conflict. I'm excited to be getting 1 episode a week, and I'm happy. There are 12 in total. Amazing acting and character development.
I mean, there's nothing to pick apart there. He didn't fuck up his English. Nick, spoke the words well, so job well done there, more or less.
Thank you, Jason. 2797 Studios says B2 Emo was lame.
Dare you?
Oh my,
Sir Bat.
Oh my,
are you kidding me?
That is.
He must have been smoking his angry weed.
Yeah. He follows that up and says, "Love the show, love the tone, love the scope and scale. Just hated the droid. Felt forced and wasn't very smart. Oh, and now there's underwear in space. You're right, because George always told us there was no underwear in space, and we did see Bix wearing underwear.
Bix had herself a bra. She was keeping those things locked in. I applaud her. You don't want some guy named Tim with 2 M's having free access to your unsecured bosoms. So
also we don't know how gravity affects your
on Ferrix,
essentials when you're like on different planets.
If women aren't wearing bras, their tits just float up into their faces.
Who knows? You're on different planets. They have different gravitational fields and pulls. some planets you may not need underwear, other ones you do.
Dude,
So
Marva's so old, like she literally has to attach weights to her titties so they don't float up. Like bras aren't enough anymore. Oh man, look at know it's been a long show and Nick's starting to go down into the toilet. Like that's usually where I live. So.
Yeah, so, you never know.
Bat's a B2 hater. Look at Bat. All right,
he hates him. Hates the B2. All right, and the final question of the week response here comes from Tones1138. We love Tones. He says, "Love the overall gritty feel of the show and the continuous tension throughout. They nailed it. As many others have stated, shit just doesn't fit in the Star Wars universe. I'd have took Dank Farrik or even Poodoo over shit. God in hell never sat with me well in other Star Wars movies, but apart from that, it's another win for D+ in my book." So he hated. You know what?
It might honestly be the older generation. I think they're the ones that had the bigger problem with shit. I honestly think it just went over my head. Sometimes I'm so focused on trying to pick up Easter eggs and references that something like that would escape me.
Yeah.
But ultimately, in the end, I did whatever.
It's just like I guess it's like so common in my own vernacular
I mean, you guys know me. I mean,
don't even.
I shouldn't even be allowed to speak publicly on stuff like this because of how poor my mouth is with cuss words and whatnot. So yeah, I guess it is just such a normal term in my daily life that it probably just like, yeah, sure, shit, fuck, damn.
Yeah,
cunt.
it's like, yeah, everybody says it. It just completely. It didn't even occur to me for a second that like, oh, that should be Poodoo. Like it didn't register. But good responses. Thank you to everybody.
What if they said, "Oh, Bantha shit," or is it's just the term shit's
I feel
too
like
much?
That would be acceptable. Like if you put Bantha in front of it, then like I feel like that would be fine. But I don't know. We would have to talk to like Grimicus or Tones to see like if that would be appropriate.
I'm thinking probably not.
Like
I'm thinking that would still be struck down. I do.
Maybe it would be.
Oh well, hey,
still be bad.
Can't win them all, but in the end, like I said, I've given up on trying to fight the good fight. There's weird things that bother me in life, so whatever. We all have our wants and desires and thoughts.
Very true.
All right. Well, that does it for question of the week, correct? Okay.
That is the end of question of the week, which means that we're moving into the top 5 Star Wars fan artist features of the week, our favorite features of the week. If you want to get involved in this segment, make sure to 1, follow us at Star Wars Time Show on Instagram, and 2, tag us in your Star Wars art and or toy pics on Instagram. That is at Star Wars Time Show. Use that. Tag us in the photo. Click on the little photo. Click the tag button. At Star Wars Time Show.
That's the best way these days.
And throw on that hashtag too. Hashtag Star Wars Time Show on those posts. That's the way you get involved in the segment. Matt will parse through all of those tags and pick his favorites every day. And then at the end of the week, if I don't pass out too early, I will go through and curate my top 5 from the ones that Matt picked earlier. So this is the top 5 Star Wars.
Hold on. We had an official ruling from Tones, and as I predicted, Bantha shit does not wash either, as he says.
It does not.
Yes.
It needs to be.
So
the
right now,
Poodoo.
I think he is calling us a bunch of twats.
Wow. Okay. Well, now we know. Now we know that it needs to be in universe.
All right,
cursing
Tone,
only.
go to bed, you twat. There's the American delivery for you.
Not the long A.
Yeah, no, he and I, we were going in our Discord, which we'd love any fan, if you want to join up. Our Discord is publicly available, no Patreons or shit like that. You can find the link in our Instagram. But yeah, Tones and I were going back on the American and the British delivery of the word twat. And we are more of an ot, where the Brits are more of an at. So he actually recorded his voice just to show me how you speak it properly.
Oh, beautiful. But anyway, to kick off the top 5 this week, our first one up is from @LionWorks on IG.
Good thing it's not B2, or Bat would punch us out right now.
He would immediately unfriend the show. But what we have here is an awesome chibi photograph of both C-3PO and R2-D2 together And I just love these figures. I don't know if it's
Egg
like
Attack,
the
man.
droid.
This is the Beast Kingdom Egg Attack, and the Star Wars line seems to be making a resurgence within the Star Wars artist community on Instagram. Because I don't know if it's because of that the Mando release or the Maul, but they are popping up more. And as you said, they got that chibi feel. And I actually own the droids C-3PO and R2 and Egg Attack, and they are some of the best figures out there because don't you just want to like pick up C-3PO and kind of, hold him and like baby talk to him. Like, oh, you little goldenrod. Yeah. Look at you, little goldenrod, your big little head. So yeah.
It's such a good representation of these two characters. Like the details are spot on. I love, I don't know if Lionworks lit the eyes himself or if this was
that's practical. You can actually turn the little dude's eyes on. Same with R2's light. So yeah, these are a great line of toys if you can find these old ones for a decent price.
Yeah, Lionworks did a great job capturing the relationship between C-3PO and R2-D2 with these awesome...
You can almost hear, and it's hard to, because they do look so cute in chibi form. But looking at it, you can almost discern that C-3PO is talking some form of shit to R2 because that's really all he does. I mean, the only time he was nice to R2 was in the sequels because R2's turned off. You know what I mean? Like, that is true. Besides that, he fucking hates R2. Let's just get that out there. Yeah. He hates his guts.
Constantly complaining. So, at Lion Works on Instagram, at LYONWORX. Go give them a follow. Next up is at straight.from.camino. I believe this is their first top 5. And we have a very gritty take on some clone troopers here. I think we see.
Wait, is this from Tony Gilroy? Is this from Tony Gilroy?
This is straight from Tony.
This is Star Wars. It's got to be Tony, right?
Yeah. Gritty, Star Wars, dark. This is going to be in the next episode of Andor, guaranteed. But it's just an awesome shot of Commander Cody, I think, and then some of his clone troopers flanking him. Great weathering effects on the armor for the clone troopers. And it's just a very well posed and executed shot straight from Camino.
Yeah, not gonna lie. I mean, I'm the one that typed out the caption, so I laid down the gritty looking clone shot, and that's exactly what it is. The gritty aesthetic always works for the Clone Wars and its subjects, and that's kind of what Straight from Camino went with here, and it's good stuff. So you got Cody and the 212 looking like badasses, getting ready to knock heads and kill some clankers. So good looking work here. From at straight.from.camino.
There we go. Good stuff. Next up, another gritty shot. A gritty wartime shot. This is from at
this
Abomination
Tony Gilroy top
Photography.
5 here. Are you sure?
I would say I had to go with the theme of the show. Right. It's gritty Star Wars now. And what we see here are some mud troopers that we saw in Solo, and they're making their way through the mud. They're walking through almost what looks like a bog. One of them's got their weapon over their head, walking through because you don't want to get your weapon wet. We've seen that in every war movie ever. If you're going through a river or any sort of body of water, and then you can see kind of the company coming in line behind the lead soldier as they all make their way through the muddy exterior. On what planet was it that they were on in Solo? Mimban.
I mean, honestly, dude, to me, this is Star Wars Vietnam. That's what this looks like. It looks just like imagery you'd see from Vietnam from our good boys there, with their their assault rifles up over their head, walking through either rice paddies or marsh areas, the jungle. But it's Star Wars with the mud trooper armor. It's great. It really does look like the Empire sent a battlefield photographer with this company, and he or she was grabbing this shot as they were moving through this marshy terrain. So I really love the almost real life quality to this Abomination_photography shot.
Well done. Next up in the top 5 is at Savvy Art. Believe that you.
That's the one you want. I didn't want to look. I always like when you pick because I don't like looking. But I was wondering because Savvy is running a month full of prompts where she's put out a calendar, and we just talked about her last week. She's an all-star. And it's like, hey, I think this prompt was Rogue One. So, but she did the one I think I featured yesterday or something, Nick, of young Ahsoka looking in the mirror and being reflected back was Ahsoka the White. Her Gandalf look. I thought that I always like to see which savvy piece you're going to go with. So,
I mean, they're all top notch, but I love how she was able to just give us a slice of every Rogue One character.
I think you made the right
Rogue
choice, considering this was our Andor premiere breakdown episode. So I like the theming you went with here.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. You get half a face of everybody of the main cast. So you get half of Jyn, half of Cassian, half of Chirrut, half of Baze, half of Bodhi, and then half of K2. And it's just in her signature style, and it's just a fantastic. Every piece she puts out is fantastic, but this one does fit along with the Andor theme of the show, and is a great tribute to the Rogue One. Yeah, I mean,
you box collectors out there that like putting your boxes together to form art. That's kind of the style that this savvy piece is in. I mean, you could almost see that these are toy boxes. You got the Jyn figure, the Cassian figure, the Chirrut figure, as Nick said. Go down the line. But we appreciate her style. She's always posting, always creating. And if you've never seen her work before, it's essentially, what would you say, like 90s era Disney animation style?
Disney,
right?
Yeah, like Disney animation. Like if you go back and watch like Princess and the Frog, it kind of has like that style of animation in terms of like her character drawings and stuff like that. It's just very, very incredible, like Disney style animation look. Beautiful stuff. So make sure to give her a follow at Savvy, SAVVYYART on Instagram. Always a pleasure to see her stuff pop up on the feed. And then finally, to close out this week's top 5, it's a little deal going on between, I don't think this is Watto, obviously, because Watto. Did Watto have his own, like he had like the junk shop, but then he also had a side business where he's like selling. If you
remember in Attack of the Clones, they do find them kind of like, I don't know if he's set up outside of his store, or if he now has like you said, kind of, how some stores, especially if you go to a beach town, they'll have in the store, but in front of it, they'll have tables with other knickknacks to maybe draw you in or make a quick sale. So we'll just say that's what's happening here with Watto.
Yeah. So you see Watto, and he's talking to Bib Fortuna, and Bib's like, "Hey man, I'm here to pick up some frogs for Jabba again."
For the big boy.
We go through these things. Watto's like, "Look, man, I only got 3." And he's like, "You gotta do better. I need more than." He's gonna eat 3 as soon as I get back, and it's just a negotiation going on between Watto and Bib in the middle of this Tatooine market, trying to get Jabba his frog hookup. And I also like how you have a pit droid coming by with a carton of blue milk bottles.
That's what I mean. I mean, if you think about it, you heard Nick break it down. The scene is rather mundane in terms of its subject, but it's all the little nuances that make it a great piece of art. It is. It's that pit droid to the right carrying a case of blue milk bottles. It's, the little tiny bits of Melloroon fruit at the stand. It's the Porg in a bird cage up there. Snaggletooth in the background. It really is. Like it's a scene that tells a story, but the story could be interpreted in many different ways. It's just, it's a great shot of life within, where was he? The Mos Espa market. So
and this is from @3Lessie. I forgot to say that @3Lessie on IG, and 3Lessie is one of our favorites. Oftentimes pops up in the top 5, and it's because the shots like the creative, well thought out shots that are not only well thought out but well executed. So always great to see a 3Lessie shot hidden feed as well.
Good looking stuff as always on the top 5.
That is right. So that's the end of the top 5. That's the end of the show. It was a long one, like we said, because we had the 3 Andor episode drop, but it was a fun one. So, Matt, close out the show.
All right, before I close it out, I forgot to announce a few things. First and foremost, if you're on the live stream and you've been looking at my man tits, you probably saw I have a nice new shirt that says "Wanted, Dead or Alive, Cassian Andor, armed and very," what does it say? Armed and very dangerous. Contact the Empire for reward. So our boy Adrian at Action Figure Snaps, he heard the call and delivered. So Nick and I, we got 2 new shirts from the Andor franchise. This was one of them, and then we just got a nice black Andor logo one coming. We'll probably be wearing that next week like twins.
Yes.
So thank you, Adrian. We love you. A lot of times we're just fucking around, but we do appreciate that sometimes you take us seriously and send us free swag like that.
Thank you very much for your generosity.
The other announcement, and some of you in Discord has been privy to this, but last Friday I saw my surgeon for the first time in about 3.5 months. And at first, it was looking a little rocky, Nick. The resident came in first, and he's like, well, hey, it's healing well, but you may be dealing with this for at least a year. And I'm like, okay, fuck. And then the surgeon comes in, and it's like night and day, dude. He walks in, he's like, hey, looking good, 100% fixed. You're back to normal. No restrictions. I'm like, what, dude? Really?
Wow.
Like, this guy just told me I'm gonna be fucking Eorin until maybe June of next year. And he's like, no, man, listen, look. He pulled it up, showed me the before and after, and how like fucked up my bone was. Is like literally the top of my bone was moved down multiple millimeters in my right leg, and that's why I had to drill in there and put screws and putty and cement and balloons. I guess he had to like blow it up with a balloon. It's all kinds of weird shit. But he's like, listen, 3 months later, bone is perfect. It healed well. It's back in line. So no restrictions, pal. You do what you got to do. He's like, obviously, you're going to have to keep building muscle back. But he's like, listen, going into it, you had some physical fitness. That helped you. And the fact that you're telling me within 2 weeks of surgery, you were back to some form of exercise, that has also helped. So that was some pretty fucking killer news I got last Friday. And it reminded me of how powerful my mind can be when I want it to be. Because Friday going to the appointment, I still felt like a broken man and that I had to be limited. And then hearing that from the expert that I'm okay, it was like I am completely fixed. I mean, there's a good chance I'm going to be on that fucking one wheel again before the end of this year when I thought I wasn't getting on until well into 2023. So that was, I very rarely like celebrating anything positive that happens in my life because I know if I do too much or too long, the universe is going to remind me that I'm meant to suffer in life. So there's a good chance after making this proclamation on this show, I'm going to walk outside and get struck by lightning or hit by a car, something like that. But that was good news. And it really does show you what your mind can do if it's properly conditioned or if it hears the right thing from the right people. Because I'm telling you, if I didn't hear that news last Friday, I'd probably still be feeling somewhat physically and mentally miserable today. So that was big shit. Now I just got to get past the women in my life and them still trying to keep me from wanting to do things that I've been wanting to do for the past 3.5 months, aka get on the fucking one wheel, the thing that sent me down this journey for at the get-go of June. But hey, whatever. Good news, but it's time to end the show, God damn it. Like Nick said, we've almost gone 3 hours. We don't charge you. It didn't cost you a dime. I know the speculation sometimes is so damn good. You think you should be paying for this show, but you're lucky. You're not. All we ask is that you keep talking about it and promoting it and trying to convince other like-minded individuals, other Star Wars fans, that they too should dedicate a few hours of their week to the Star Wars Time Show. So your best tool to do that is StarWarsTime.net. You know, that's where our content's at. You can kind of get a feel for what we're into, our voice. But more importantly, this is where you can find all of our social links. You can sub to the podcast from StarWarsTime.net. We're everywhere. Just pick the platform. We'll be there. All we ask is that you sub, rate, and review, especially on iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, the big ones that allow you to do it. It's better than money. When you tell the overlords that are now going to make Darth Vader's voice that you believe in the Star Wars Time Show on iTunes, they will then grace us with favor, okay? So keep the ratings and reviews up. If you're on the live stream now, don't forget to like it. Don't forget to share it with a friend. Leave a comment if you will. Comments also drive traffic, and that's all we are here for. We just want more people to join in on the fun. If you had fun today, think about sharing that fun with someone else that could be into this somewhat different Star Wars fan podcast. So don't forget, StarWarsTime.net. There's always time for Star Wars time. Bring a friend, bring a family member, bring a pet. It doesn't matter as long as they have an account that allows them to leave comments, reviews, or ratings on the Star Wars Time show. Don't forget to tell them, as you are pitching us, that if they do listen to it, the Force, some people call it God, will be with you. Always.